Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching What If Naruto Nearly Destroyed Sasuke in Valley of the End for Hinata. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Naruto was currently arguing with himself after having a sort of epiphany. You see, he went to Sasuke Teme after realizing that Sakura never thanked him for anything. She and the Teme were saved from Orochipido, from Gaara, and most recently, Tsunade was brought to heal her precious Sasuke. He had believed he loved her, but he was rapidly coming to the conclusion that he no longer did. He was now trying to come up with a conversation partner since Kakashi was still in the hospital. He was unable to speak with him. It struck him both literally and figuratively as he thought about those who had faith in him. He had been wandering around, not paying attention to his destination, and he had run into Hinata upon seeing her. Naruto knew he could speak with her. Recalling the time before the final exam when Hinata recognized him, Naruto blushed a number of colors. "I'm sorry Hinata, I wasn't paying attention to where I was going," Naruto replied. When Hinata noticed Naruto's distress, she said, "It's okay. Naruto-kun, I wasn't either. Are you okay? Naruto-kun? You seem distressed?" Observing her anxiety, Naruto remarked, "I've just been thinking about some things and it's stressing me out." Trying not to stutter, Hinata said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Naruto-kun, would you want to talk about it? It might help." I was about to ask Naruto, and he replied, "Yeah, that would be a big help, thanks Hinata." When Naruto thanked her, she flushed and said, "You're welcome, Naruto-kun, I'm happy to help if I can." He asked, "Is it okay if we go somewhere else to talk?" As soon as he realized they were surrounded by many people. She gave a sympathetic nod. He swiftly led her to the summit of the Hokage monument after saying, "Thanks." Naruto remarked, "This is where I go to think about things." "Okay, what is wrong, Naruto-kun?" inquired Hinata. They sat there for a few minutes after he finished explaining his realization. Then she replied, "You are right, Naruto-kun, Sakura does not appreciate you and doesn't deserve your love." "Thanks Hinata-chan, I was wondering if you would like to get some ramen with me?" he said, expressing gratitude for the assistance. Now flushed, Hinata stammered, "I would like that Naruto-kun." Then, as they were ready to leave, Hinata-chan realized that Naruto had called her, blushed violently, and passed out right away. Unexpectedly, Naruto chose to bring her to his home to avoid her father's wrath. Indeed, Naruto was aware of Hinata's father and harbored a deep hatred for him. After carrying her to his house in bridal fashion, he sat her on the bed and waited for her to wake up, which she did approximately an hour later. Unaware of what had transpired, she asked, "Naruto, where are we and what happened?" after waking up in a place she had never been. After that, he gave her an explanation of what had transpired and the reason he had taken her to his home. Now that she was in Naruto's bed, Hinata was trying not to pass out. "Thank you Naruto-kun, that means a lot. I didn't know you knew how my father treats me," replied Hinata. "It was no problem, I didn't mind Hinata-chan." Naruto, who was trying to control his anger toward her father, responded, "Yes, I do, and I personally hate that man for what he does to you." "Why do you care about what happens to me, Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked, blushing at his concern for her. Naruto resolutely stated, "I always have, even when I liked Sakura, but now more than ever since I realized you're one of the few that care about me." "Thank you so much Naruto-kun, that means so much to me. I love you Naruto-kun," Hinata said, blushing and grinning. "Yo you lo love me Hinata?" Naruto stammered as he went pale. With a red flush, she exclaimed, Yes, I do Naruto-kun." "Why?" inquired Naruto. Hinata hugged Naruto and remarked, "I admire your determination and we will to never give up." He tensed up and gave her a hug in return, saying, "Oh okay. I don't know how I feel about you, but we can go out sometime and work our way there Hina-chan." "I would like that Naruto-kun, but I need to get home, it's getting late," she said, smiling and blushing even more, "if that's possible." "Okay Hina-chan, if you want, we can go out tomorrow," Naruto said with a smile. She gave him a cheek kiss, nodded, and walked home grinning. Naruto had a smile on his face. 2 weeks had passed since the day they first spoke in his apartment, and he had just returned home from his 5th date with Hinata. He had made the decision to confess his love for Hinata to her tomorrow. What a shock he was about to experience. He awoke to an Anbu informing him that the Hokage had asked him to come in 15 minutes. When he arrived, Tsunade appeared awful and was in unimaginable distress. Naruto said, "Hey Ba-chan, what is wrong?" Tsunade said, "Naruto, I have a mission for you." Unless there was a serious problem, Tsunade never referred to him as Naruto. "Okay, what is it and why is it got you like this?" asked Naruto. She exhaled, last night at approximately 2200 hours, aka 10 p.m., Sasuke Uchiha attacked Sakura Haruno when he was about to leave the village and she tried to stop him, she said. So you want me to go get the Teme back, I'm guessing, replied Naruto. With another heavy sigh, she said, but wait, there's more. We think he has an escort, so you need to gather a team to get him. You have an hour to get them and leave the commanded area. Okay, I've got it, Ba-chan, I'll bring the Teme back, said Naruto. Hold on Naruto, there's one more thing, she said. Hinata Hyuga was walking by when Sasuke knocked Sakura out and tried to stop him, but he beat her and knocked her out. Angry and on the verge of forgetting everything and tearing him to pieces, Naruto composed himself and inquired, how is Hinata doing, Tsunade-sama? Tsunade said, she has 4 broken fingers, a fractured wrist, a broken fibula, and several concussions, but she will be okay. Naruto had never called her that, and now he appeared ready to tear Sasuke to pieces. If Naruto had been angry before, he would have been like 10 Tsunades who had been spied by Jiraiya. Okay, I'm going to visit her first, then I will get the team and go. He didn't say anything, but he essentially growled and snarled, and now that he had orders, he departed. Tsunade didn't understand why he was so upset because no one knew that Naruto and Hinata were dating, but she chose to put it off for later. Naruto was upset and depressed upon seeing Hinata because he wished he could have shielded her, but it was too late. He had to act quickly to beat the Teme to a bloody pulp and return him to Konoha. He approached her, leaned over, and gave her a kiss, saying, I love you Hina-chan now and forever. I'm sorry, Hina-chan, I should have been there to protect you. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Choji, Shikamaru, Neji, and Kiba were the members of Naruto's assembled team. All right, it appears that we are prepared. Just to be clear, I cannot guarantee that if I fight the Teme, he will be whole when we return, he said icily. Raising an eyebrow, Shikamaru questioned, why would that be, Naruto? If we make it back, I'll tell you, Naruto said with a laugh. He simply grinned as he thought of Hinata while everyone stared at him as if he were crazy. Since you can watch episodes 111 to 127 of regular Naruto, I won't type a ton of details about how it happened. Naruto was clearly furious as he looked at Sasuke, vengeance blazing in his eyes. Sasuke smirked at Naruto for a good 2.5 seconds before Naruto automatically entered Chakra Fox mode and was on Sasuke, punching him in the chest before he could blink. What's wrong, Baka? Are you scared or are you mad? I broke that little Hyuga bitch? Before falling out onto the water, keeping himself on top of the barley, and coughing up a cup of blood, Sasuke skidded across the water and struck the side of the statue of Madara at the Valley of the End, going in a solid 6 inches. With a deadpan tone, Naruto smirked and said, say that again and you will witness the deepest depths of hell Uchiha. Because he had a gut feeling that Naruto could do it if he so desired, even if it meant losing his life, Sasuke was afraid of Naruto. Baka, you couldn't do anything against me, Uchiha, the elite of elites. You couldn't hope to beat me, said Sasuke. Before he could skid away, Naruto grabbed him and pulled him in for a vicious headbutt that instantly caused Sasuke to suffer a concussion. He then flew back, but Naruto appeared behind him and kicked him in the back up into the air. He jumped and heel dropped Sasuke in the face, sending him flying to the ground, where he landed cracked all over. Naruto growled and quickly roundhouse kicked Sasuke in the ribs. Naruto chuckled, sounding demonic. It isn't so fun on the receiving end, is it, Teme? Sasuke got up and entered curse mark level 2. His skin turned gray, his hair grew longer, and a tattoo that looked like a black shuriken appeared on his face. For an entire minute, Sasuke let out a hyena-like cackle before it stopped, and he glared at Naruto, saying, it's time to end this, Dobi. After chuckling, Naruto remarked, Teme, I couldn't agree more. Naruto uttered those words in a genuinely demonic tone. Once I kill you, I'll go back to the village and have Hinata arrange to marry me so I can use her to revive my clan, Sasuke declared as he charged a Chidori. With 2 tails, Naruto charged a Rasengan and shouted, Sasuke, you fucking bastard, I will kill you and tear you to pieces. Sasuke misjudged Naruto's new form as they charged at each other, and Naruto's Rasengan overtook the Chidori, ripped into Sasuke's stomach, and slammed into the ground with all of his might. When the statue of Madara fell, Naruto hurried to catch Sasuke and move aside since he didn't want to kill him. He threw Sasuke away so he could take him to make amends for his crimes. Naruto felt a sharp pain in his chest as he reached for Sasuke, and when he looked down, he saw a fist covered in lightning entering through his solar plexus. He turned to look behind him, and just before he passed out, a name came to him. Naruto only uttered, Kakashi-sensei, before fainting. Naruto's expression was one of surprise and horror as Kakashi-sensei said it. With an expression of disgust, Kakashi exclaimed, "I am not your sensei, fucking demon." Naruto, now sobbing and coughing up blood, questioned, "Why would you do this, Kakashi-sensei? I thought you cared. You are not my fucking student and that was all a game. I just wanted you so I could make Sasuke better. I never care about you. Why would I care about a demon? I only cared to make the Uchiha clan better as well as Sasuke," Kakashi said with conviction. Now that Naruto was heavily bleeding on the ground, Kakashi picked him up and threw him into the river. Kakashi approached Sasuke and began to return to the village, saying, "Good riddance of that fucking demon, Sasuke, we have to get going." They had no idea that Naruto was being healed by the reason he was in this predicament on the bank of the river downstream. After 5 days in Konoha, Kagetsu and Azuma were observing the main gate when they noticed an enigmatic figure in the distance. As he approached, they noticed that he was wearing an Akatsuki robe with a hood and flames in place of clouds, a black cloak with a hood that showed orange and crimson flames along the end. The cloak obscured everything else, including his face. They held hands to get the man to stop once he was within 5 feet of them. "Halt! What is your reason for coming to the village, mister?" replied Azuma. "Kagetsu, Crimson Moon," said in a deep, strong voice. "My name is Kagetsu, Crimson Moon, and I am just visiting my old home village of Konoha." The strength in this man's voice made both Kagetsu and Azuma shudder. "Why would you want to do that, Kagetsu-san?" Kagetsu asked warily. "Don't use honorifics, they are too formal, thank you." Kagetsu laughed deeply, almost demonically, and then said, "I just wish to visit some old friends like Tucci-san. I heard he has a daughter now." Because they were almost certain that this man could tear them both to pieces, Kagetsu and Azuma exchanged glances and nodded. "Okay, then we will let you be on your way then, Kagetsu-san," Azuma said cautiously. With his hands on their shoulders, the man said, "Loosen up, I mean you no harm, take it easy, Kagetsu and Azuma." The man left Kagetsu and Azuma shitless and terrified as he left, laughing almost demonically. They exchanged glances before turning back to face the already departed man. Kagetsu then said, "That dude was fucking crazy, let's agree to forget that, okay?" Nodding, Azuma said, "Yes, we should do that." "Wait, Kagetsu, how did that dude know our names?" Azuma asked as they sat down to watch the gate once more. Kagetsu simply stated, "I don't know and honestly don't care. He was too scary for it to matter enough to find out." Azuma agreed right away that he didn't want to enrage that man. "Hey Tucci, how has it been?" Kagetsu asked as he approached Ichiraku Ramen and noticed that no one else was there. Tucci said, "I'm sorry, have we met before? I can't remember, it has been a hard week, my mind is fried." Tucci was perplexed because he had no idea who this man was. In a softer tone, Kagetsu asked, "Oh, why is that old friend?" Without really considering who he was talking to, said, "My best customer and someone who was like my son was killed on a retrieval mission for his teammate, was killed after their battle by his own sensei, and now that man is being treated like a hero for killing him since he housed a demon inside and everybody thinks he was a demon. Even though he wasn't, he was one of the most kind and caring people you will ever meet." Tucci began to weep. "Why doesn't the Hokage do something? I heard she cared about that boy like a son," Kagetsu said, making a strange sound that sounded like a mix of sobbing and growling. Tucci, who was crying more than ever, said, "She is so grief-stricken that she cannot even think straight enough to fix it." Even though Kagetsu was furious, he approached the man who was crying and gave him a pat on the back while reassuring him that he would take care of the situation. With a deranged expression on his face, Tucci questioned, "How and why would you do that?" Kagetsu then grinned and said with a, "I can't let my precious people be so hurt and do nothing. I will fix this, I promise. Take care, Tucci Oji-san, and tell Ayame Nichan to come back to work and to perk up. I'm not dead yet by a long shot." When Tucci looked up and saw who he was speaking to, he gasped, but he was gone. However, there was a note on the counter, which 10,000 picked up and read, "Greetings, Tucci Oji-san, you and Ayame are like my family, and I love you both. I will make things right, but I will be out of the village for a few years, so here is some money to let Ayame Nichan know that I love her and will be back. Be careful, your most valuable client. I'll be using Kagetsu as my alias, so if you hear that name, it's me. Just like you, Naruto, always caring about others even when you in danger," Tucci said with a smile as she looked up. Naruto was heading to the Hokage Tower to investigate the situation. He decided to kick down the door after walking up to it and knocking. The first thing he said as he entered the room was, "Good afternoon, Tsunade-sama." Tsunade shouted, "What the fuck do you think you're doing kicking my door open?" after raising her gaze to the cloaked figure. When he said, "Before you hit me, I have news about this demon," as everyone has called him, she went to punch the cloaked figure. With hope in her voice, Tsunade angrily remarked, "Don't ever call. Wait, you have news on him? I thought Kakashi killed him." "No, he is alive, not, but before we discuss anything else I want you to call a council meeting," he replied with seriousness. After considering simply taking him to Anko, she decided to listen to him and say, "Since you have news on Naruto-kun, I'll do it." After 45 minutes, the civilian council and all of the clan heads were present in the council room. Hiyashi said, "Why have we been called here today, Tsunade-sama?" as Naruto approached them. Speaking up, Tsunade said, "This man has news on Uzumaki Naruto and would like to share it." When Sume said, "Wait, I thought Kakashi killed the demon brat," everyone's eyes darted from her to the man in the cloak and back again. Instead of saying anything, the cloaked man asked, "Sume, is it?" Sume nodded. "I do believe there is a law against ever saying that punishable by death." Tsunade's killing intent was thick and heavy enough to make everyone except the cloaked man perspire. She began to perspire, but he persisted, saying in his loudest voice, "I will let it slide since you clearly forgot, but none of you should forget the third's law." Everyone nodded their heads, unwilling to disagree. "What news do you have on Naruto-kun?" Tsunade asked. Getting to her feet, "Is he alright?" He said, "I can assure you that he is quite alright, actually better than ever." You could see a small smile on his lips. That pleased Tsunade, who asked with hope in her voice, "Where is he? Can I see?" With a broad smile, he said, "Of course, Ba-chan." He grabbed his hood and lowered it. Everyone gasped at what they saw. It was obvious that this was Naruto, but he had changed. He was about 8 inches tall, his eyes had slits, his whiskers were more noticeable, and his hair was longer near his shoulders with crimson streaks taller. Sitting in on the meeting, Kakashi leapt to his feet and screamed, "I killed you, how are you still alive?" While everyone else was wheezing on their knees, Naruto's killing intent was so thick and heavy that it caused a few people to faint. He took a step back and said, "Shut your mouth, Hitaki, before I say a thing. I want you to call the Konoha 11 feet here and tell me, have you told them I have the Kyuubi in me?" Tsunade wanted to rush up to embrace Naruto, so she sent someone to get the Konoha 11 inches and said, "No, I have ordered no one to tell them for at least 3 months." He grinned and replied, "Good, and now come and give me a hug, Ba-chan. I've missed you, but you'll have to answer some questions later." Grinning, she rushed to embrace him and sobbed, "Naruto-kun, I've missed you so much." "I've been missing you, Ba-chan," he said, pulling away and putting his hood back on for when they got here. The remaining members of the Konoha 12 inches arrived half an hour later, including wheelchair-bound Sasuke with Sakura at his heels. His left leg had multiple fractures, his right wrist was broken, his jaw was fractured, and he had 4 broken ribs. They were all curious about this man's identity, but judging by everyone's appearance, they were unwilling to ask any questions. "She looks terrible." Naruto frowned as he saw Hinata, thinking, "I'm so sorry, Hina-chan, but it'll be better soon." Following that, Tsunade stated, "This man here has information on Naruto and would like to share it with us." All 11 of them began to mutter, but Hinata was the most unexpected since she yelled loudly for her to come. "Where is Naruto-kun? Is he okay? Can I see him?" Everyone was taken aback, but what truly caught them off guard was his statement, "It's okay, Hinata-chan, everything will be fine." When he blew off his cloak, revealing Naruto in black shinobi pants and Anbu armor, everyone gasped, but Hinata's eyes were the only ones that weren't bulging. She ran up to Naruto, grabbed him, and began sobbing, saying, "Naruto-kun, you're okay. I was so worried about you." The moment Naruto raised her chin and said, "Everything is fine now, Hina-chan. I am fine, I love you, Hina-chan," shocked everyone even more. After he kissed her, Hiyashi was kneeling over, appearing to be about to faint, and everyone was staring at him like a fish out of water. She then returned the kiss after saying, "I love you, Naruto-kun. Now before anyone asks how I am alive, I need to tell you all a story. Have you all heard the story of how the 4th killed the Kyuubi?" Hinata said after everything had been brought under control and Naruto was still holding. He went on, "Well, the story isn't entirely correct. The Kyuubi isn't dead," after everyone had nodded. Sasuke said, "What are you talking about, Dobi? Of course the Kyuubi is dead. The 4th killed him." Everyone stared at him as if he were insane. With a kunai to Sasuke's neck, Naruto appeared behind him abruptly and said, "Don't interrupt me again, Uchiha." As soon as he got there, he was back with Hinata. Only Kakashi, Hiyashi, and Tsunade were present when Naruto moved. He went on, "As strong as the 4th was, no mere human could kill a demon, let alone the strongest one." Everyone nodded in agreement as Naruto stated, "The 4th didn't kill the Kyuubi, he sealed it." He went on, the Kyuubi had to be sealed in a newborn. That child is, he said, their eyes all widening me. When the 11 of them gasped, Hinata questioned, Naruto, you have the Kyuubi no Yoko sealed inside you. In response, he nodded and said, yes, and I understand if you don't want to be around me anymore. After kissing him, she said, you idiot, that doesn't matter, you're not a demon, only the cage. Yeah, I suppose you're right, Hina-chan, he said with a laugh. At that moment, a woman with pink hair yelled, I call for a vote to exile one Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto interrupted Tsunade as she opened her mouth to speak, saying, they have the right to do that, Ba-chan. Aburame, and, no, were nodded by her, despite her anger. Akamichi. Yes. Hyuga. Yes. Inuzuka. Yes. Nara. No. Yamanaka. No. Danzo, it is up to you since 3 clan heads are not non-existent. Yes. Would transform Konoha and the world as they knew it, but everyone was staring at Danzo. With the exception of Sasuke and the person who said, yes, everyone appeared distraught when Naruto burst out laughing since everyone thought he was crazy. He said, I had hoped this would happen, so first of all I will be back one day to get Hina-chan if she wants. If anything happens to Hinata while I am away, I will let the Kyuubi take over and except for a few people let him slaughter this entire village, he said as he walked in front of the council after glancing at her and getting a nod. What if we don't agree to these terms? Hiyashi asked as they all shuddered. As if it were the most straightforward thing ever, Naruto looked at him and laughed demonically, saying, I will start ripping throats out till you do agree. Now I want everyone except Hinata in here out in 15 seconds or I will kill you all, he said, raising his voice once more. Naruto turned to Hinata after they had all departed, saying, I know you want to go with me, but I am not strong enough to protect us from the people they will send after us. I understand, Naruto-kun. I will miss you and I love you, she said, nodding. I know, and I will miss you and I love you too, he said, grinning and giving her a hug. I have something for you to remember me by. Then he removed a blue, nearly black fox from a necklace and placed it on her. She grinned and said, thank you so much, Naruto-kun. I don't have much, but take my jacket, even though you might not able to wear it, it will remind you of me. He asked, is it okay if I put some seals on it? After she gave it to him. When she nodded, he grinned, grabbed a brush and some ink, and quickly drew 2 seals on the jacket's inside. This seal will make it where I can put chakra into it so it'll fit me. He held it up and enlarged it to fit him. This one will keep your smell on it so it will smell like you no matter what. Smiling, she said, I love you, Naruto. I love you to Hinaheim. After waiting for 15 minutes, Naruto emerged with Hinata on his chest. He approached the Konoha 12 and had a conversation with each of them separately. Sasuke turned pale and said, never even consider touching Hinata Uchiha. With tears in her eyes, Sakura said, you are an ungrateful slut, Sakura. Kiba passed out, saying, if you ever try to touch Hinata, having children won't be a problem. Shino. I trust you to take care of Hinata while I'm gone. Of course, Naruto. Ino said, you will become a strong kunoichi, Ino. She grinned and replied, yes, Naruto, I will. Yes, I will, even though it's difficult, Shikamaru said. Shikamaru, even though you are the most lazy person I know, I can trust you to take care of everyone. Naruto, please return soon. They both grinned. Shoji grinned and laughed, saying, Shoji, don't worry about your weight and eat enough Ichiraku for both of us. Tenten said, you will grow up to be a kunoichi to rival Tsunade. Tenten. She grinned. Yes, I will, I promise. Lee, said Lee, smiling in a nice guy pose, you should calm down a little but never lose that confidence, you will be a fine shinobi someday. Neji began to laugh and said, I'll keep Hinata safe, take care of her and relax a little or I'll pull that stick out of your ass. Okay everyone, I'm going to the gates. Antoni, want to come? Except for Sakura, Kiba, and Sasuke, all 12 went. I love you Hinaheim and I will be back, I promise, Naruto said after setting Hinata down when they arrived. I love you to Naru-kun and I know, she said, giving him a hug. Turning to face everyone, he said, goodbye all of you. After giving Hinata another kiss, Naruto left. A ninja who would alter the course of history was walked off by Naruto Uzumaki. It will only be known in due time, for better or worse. 2 weeks following Naruto's village departure. In Konoha, the Leaf Village had undergone a number of changes. Some of these include the fact that Kiba stopped pursuing Hinata. Hiyashi was less harsh on her following the council meeting with Naruto, and that everyone in the Konoha 12, aside from Kiba and Sasuke, respected Naruto more. The most unexpected things, however, are that Hinata, a timid young woman, dyed her hair with crimson streaks in remembrance of Naruto and would yell at and/or attack anyone who disparaged Naruto. Aside from these issues, the village was much quieter without Naruto. Naruto was ecstatic and had begun returning to work after Ayame had heard. 3 days after leaving the village with Naruto, Naruto spent the last 8 days reflecting on everything. Flashback: he was thrown into a river after being struck by Kakashi with a lightning blade, where he washed up on a bank. Kyuubi then healed his wounds. He awoke in the sewer that serves as the Kyuubi's lair, cage, once his wounds had sufficiently healed. Fox: what will we do now that I've been abandoned by my village and sensei? He asked the Kyuubi as he approached the cage. Kid: first of all, you should know my real name. I hate being called Fox or that infernal nickname Kyuubi, Kyuubi said, noticing that he was speaking in a dead tone. Naruto was intrigued by this and listened to the fox say, my real name is Chitsuki, Blood Moon. Naruto asked, okay then Chitsuki, what is your plan? First you will go to Konoha but hidden in a cloak and under a fake name. Kagetsu should do, replied Chitsuki. Chitsuki nodded to Naruto. Then go to Tsunade still disguised and ask her to hold a council meeting because you have news on the supposedly killed Naruto. Once there tell them Naruto is alive and well, then reveal your face. After they are over the shock of seeing you, request for the rest of the Konoha 12 to join the meeting. Next explain how I'm inside you but don't tell them my name. I believe they will try to banish you, if not then do something to be banished. What? Why? Was interrupted by Naruto. Don't worry, it's part of the plan. I know you don't want to leave your girl but you need to get stronger before you take her from the village. Even though he didn't like it, Naruto nodded in understanding. Good, now before we do any of this I'm going to increase the output of you Kai so you'll grow taller. Your hair will be longer with crimson streaks, and your killing intent will feel far stronger than you really are, Chitsuki responded. Okay. How long will that take? Asked Naruto with a smile. Replied, it should take about 3 days before I start. I want you to go to a nearby town and have some clothes made. The ones you have are horrible. Naruto gave a nod and set his mind to it. End of flashback. After 3 days of wandering, Naruto made the decision to discuss their plans with Chitsuki. The mindscape of Naruto. Naruto said, hey Chitsuki, what are we going to do now? You should head to Wave Country and stay with the bridge builder. We will be there about a year and we will be training you taijutsu, fuinjutsu, and kenjutsu, replied Chitsuki. But I don't use an actual weapons. Why would I need to train kenjutsu? Asked Naruto, perplexed. We will change that once we get there. That's why when we get there I want you to go to a blacksmith and have black steel daggers and a fox mask made for you. You'll be using the daggers unless which you'll be using kitsune steel daggers that we will have crafted when you have signed the kitsune contract, and the fox mask will be for hiding your identity, replied Chitsuki. After giving a nod, Naruto decided to begin his journey there. Simultaneously in an unidentified location someone in the shadows said, Pain-sama, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, has been exiled from his village and his location is unknown at the moment. Pain gave a nod and stated, that is fine, we can't seal him until last anyway, but continue to look for him and keep tabs on him. As you wish, Pain-sama, in a secret root base away from Konoha. Danzo-sama, now that the Nine-Tailed Jinchuriki has been exiled from the village and his location is currently unknown, what should we do? Requested a root Anbu. Danzo laughed and replied, great, now I can obtain the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki and use him to make the village stronger. Tell everyone that in 3 months we will send a regiment of 500 root to secure the boy. By then we should know his location. With a nod, the root departed to let everyone know what was going to happen. Wave Country. 1 week later, Naruto saw the sign above the bridge that read, the Great Uzumaki Bridge, just as he had arrived at it. After taking a moment to check that he had read it correctly, Naruto laughed. Naruto chose to go to a blacksmith's shop to have his mask and daggers made after spotting one while strolling around the town. What can I do for you? Asked a tall man, about 6 feet 3 inches, who was wearing a blacksmith's apron, as Naruto opened the door and turned to face him. I need 2 daggers and a mask made. Do you think you could do it? Asked Naruto with a foxy smile. When Naruto described their intended appearance to him, the elderly man replied, sure, I can, but I have a question. Are you Naruto Uzumaki? Yeah, I am, but could you not tell anyone? I don't want people to know that I'm here, Naruto smiled. The individual nodded and replied, sure, but remember to always tell people where you get your stuff and you always have a discount here. With a genuine smile, Naruto replied, of course and thanks so much. The individual replied, no problem, and your stuff should be ready in a week. It was Naruto who turned to leave, saying, "Thanks, see you in a week, Oji-san." Naruto grinned when he heard the man laughing. Naruto approached Tazuna's residence and rapped on the door. About 30 seconds later, Inari opened the door to find Naruto grinning. Naruto said, "Hey Inari, it's been a while, hasn't it?" Rejoicing, Inari embraced Naruto and exclaimed, "It's Naruto Onichan." Tazuna asked, "Hey, how are you, Naruto?" And Naruto grinned. "You've changed a lot, haven't you?" Naruto replied, "Yay, would you mind if I stayed here a while? I'll explain why later, I promise." Tazuna nodded and replied, "Sure, after all you've done for us I don't mind letting you stay here as long as you need." As he made his way to the blacksmith's shop to retrieve his belongings, Naruto reflected on the moment. He explained his purpose to Tazuna's family. Tazuna wanted to stop trading with Konoha because they were angry, but Naruto told him that he didn't want to harm the people he cared about because the majority of Konoha were stupid. "Hey, are the daggers and mask ready yet, Oji-san?" Naruto asked the man as he entered the store. After chuckling, the man said, "Yes, there are 2 boxes ready, they were just finished last night." "Nice, they look great," Naruto exclaimed as he removed them and placed them in a sheath on his belt. He then produced the mask, a white one that resembled a bone fox. Naruto said as he left the store, "Thanks Oji-san, it's great, I'll see you later." The following day in the woods behind Tazuna's home. To sign the contract, Naruto was going to call forth a kitsune, which is the same as a normal summoning but done in reverse. By doing this, Naruto was able to call forth a black fox with 3 tails that was the size of a large wolf. It was asking, "Who summons Shigetsu, Dead Moon?" Naruto said, "I, Naruto Uzumaki Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed fox, wish to sign the kitsune contract." "You're the holder of Chitsuki-sama?" the fox exclaimed. Naruto transformed into 1 tail and said, "Yes, I am, I'll show you." "Of course you can sign the contract, Naruto-sama," the fox said, gasping once more. "Don't bother with the sama stuff, Shigetsu-chan," Naruto said with a laugh. When the chan was added, the fox flushed and said, "Okay, Naruto-kun, here's the kitsune contract." After Naruto signed the contract, it disappeared. "Now you will be able to summon kitsunes at any time. I'm sure you know how summoning works." Naruto gave a wink. Naruto showed her his daggers and said, "Okay, one more thing, Shigetsu-chan, can you have a pair of daggers like these being made from kitsune steel?" "Of course Naruto-kun, they should be ready in about 3 months, she said, nodding. The fox vanished as Naruto grinned and scratched her head, saying, "Thanks Shigetsu-chan, I'll see you later." About 2.5 months after Naruto's departure from Konoha. Since Naruto left, a few things had occurred. Firstly, the Hyuga Council was attempting to marry Hinata to the Inuzuka clan, specifically Kiba, and place the caged bird seal on her. In reality, Hiyashi was attempting to prevent this because he did not want to suggest Naruto's anger. This infuriated Hinata, who had been training since Naruto's departure and had a low Chunin level, meaning she could fight Neji for roughly 10 minutes. She is therefore far more powerful than she was before Naruto left. The council was attempting to persuade Tsunade to pursue Naruto with Hunter Nin. They were still looking for a way to make her send some, but she promptly declined. When Tsunade finally revealed the truth about the Kyuubi, it didn't really alter anyone's opinion of him. Those who had previously admired him or despised him remained so. Approximately the same time in the wave, Naruto sent 5 clones to investigate the rumors that a regiment of 500 ninjas was en route to Wave for unclear reasons. In roughly 2 weeks, he would add ninjutsu to his list of daily exercises, while 250 clones practiced fuinjutsu and 2 additional groups of 250 practiced tai and kenjutsu. He was currently at mid-jonin level without fox mode, but with the increased yokai, he was able to control up to 3 tails flawlessly and 4 tails, where he would be conscious but nothing more. He had only practiced 3 tails, but he determined in 3 tails that he was elite Junin level. Along with developing a concentration exercise with the Rasengan, he had also mastered the art of forming a Rasengan without the use of a clone. He would form a Rasengan in each hand, gradually combining and separating them. For the time being, he would simply wait for his clones to report back and carry on with his activities. After a week, Naruto went out to set up some traps after learning from his clones that there were roughly 500 ninja on their way here and that they were pursuing him. He first had some clones create 100 super explosive tags, which were 4 times more powerful than a standard explosive note. He then had them scatter 50 of them across the bridge's front, and the remaining 50 were placed in the ground about 300 meters to the right of the bridge, where he would lead the others after the bridge was blown. He sat down to enter his mindscape after finishing that because he sensed that Shitsuki wanted to talk. The mindscape of Naruto, he approached the cage, and Shitsuki said, "Kid, I need to tell you some things that you should know." "All right," said Naruto, nodding. "What is it, Shitsuki?" Shitsuki murmured, "First of all, you should know where the Sharingan first came from. I was the one who created it to a nice man named Uchiha who I thought deserved it, and he was a good man even after he got it, but the same could not be said of his son Madara Uchiha. I'll tell you about him later, I just thought you should know where it came from." "Okay, that's okay because you were merely giving a gift," Naruto said. "Anything else?" "In about 6.5 months you will need to undergo a transformation to live with yokai," Shitsuki said, letting out a sigh of relief that Naruto was not angry. Perplexed, Naruto inquired, "What sort of change?" "According to Chitsuji, you will have to become a Hanyu, half-demon." With a nod, Naruto said, "All right, what will change about me?" "You will lose your regular ears and grow kitsune ears on your head. You'll sprout a certain numbers of tails and will eventually grow 9 and become the new Kyuubi. Also your hair will grow even longer and have even more crimson highlights. Your eyes will become more slitted and one will turn crimson. You will also become around 21 years old and never age. Lastly, you will live forever as well as your children. First off, are you okay with this?" Shitsuki nodded as Naruto gasped and said, "Okay. First, I've got a couple of questions. What are you going to do? And finally, will I be able to make my wife immortal too?" "Why do you think I call you Kid?" Shitsuki asked himself after thinking. This kid surprises me again and again, never worrying about himself, only others. "I don't know, I thought you just said it because I was so young," replied Naruto. "No," said Shitsuki, laughing. "I call you Kid because I think of you as my son and my heir." With a gasp, Naruto exclaimed, "Really? Do you?" "I am about to cry." "Yes, I do think of you as my son," Shitsuki said with a smile. With a smile, Naruto said, "Okay, I'm glad you think that of me, but what will happen to you, Shitsuki?" Shitsuki stated, "I will be a lot less powerful and never have more than 2 tails, but I'm fine with that." "All right, and my wife?" Naruto said. Shitsuki replied, "I knew you'd ask that, and yes, you can all explain that later when the time comes." "That sounds fine then," Naruto grinned and asked, "Anything else?" "Would you mind changing the mindscape to something better than a sewer? It's not that great here," Shitsuki sighed. With an infectious smile, Naruto remarked, "Of course you should have asked sooner." Naruto snapped his fingers as he was leaving, and the cage and sewer vanished, leaving behind a sizable field with a waterfall and stream. The Chitsuki wore a collar that contained the kanji for seal. A week later, directly in the town, it was dawn when Naruto stood behind the bridge, and he could make out the ninja on the horizon along with the other villagers. Tazuna, Inari, and Tsunami were present. As everyone was departing, Naruto turned to face them and said, "Okay, everyone, you should go in your houses so you'll be safe." He also said, "I'm sorry about this, Tazuna." Naruto turned back to the ninja and waited while Tazuna continued to walk despite her confusion. War scene warning: the ninja were beginning to move across the village when Naruto turned on the bridge's tags and destroyed it halfway across. The bridge fell into the river, and body parts flew everywhere. After that, Naruto leapt across the river while wearing the yokai cloak. "Hey, you after me?" Naruto shouted as he made his way to the underground location where he had placed the tags. When he arrived, he halted and pivoted, drawing his daggers with a demonic tone. Naruto exclaimed, "Let's have some fun." They all shivered, but they still had 350 and hurried Naruto despite losing 150. With a laugh, Naruto hurried them, cutting the first 2 ninjas' throats and causing blood to splash everywhere before spinning around and destroying 5 more. Then, leaping back, he shouted, "Better not blink." After that, Naruto wielded his chakra-enabled daggers like boomerangs, severing the heads of 10 ninja before catching them and re-belting them. In order to activate the tags and kill more than 200 ninja, Naruto channeled yokai into his feet and leapt 30 feet before landing back on the ground. Now let's light it up. He decided to end it with his new attack after noticing that there were only a little over 100 people left. He then went into 4 tails and leapt back to the river's edge. "Attack me!" With a shout, Naruto began to gather yokai and chakra around himself before condensing them into a small ball in front of him. He said, "Biju ball, tailed beast ball," just before swallowing the ball. After swallowing the ball, Naruto abruptly grew larger, causing a crater to form beneath him. After forcing the chakra out, Naruto shot a massive chakra beam that killed and nearly disintegrated everything, leaving only some blood behind. He created some clones to dispose of the bodies in the river after realizing that everyone was dead. Once everything was finished, Naruto said, "Kami, I'm so tired," then he departed. Fortunately, Naruto didn't wear Hinata's jacket that day because the Land of Waves was renamed after all the bodies were dumped there. The Land of Bloody Tides was another name for the Land of Waves. 1 week following the Konoha Bridge battle, it had been reported that a man named Kagetsu had rescued Wave from 500 Root Anbu. Everyone shuddered when they realized that one man could kill 500 ninja. 2 individuals recognized this person and responded in a similar manner, grinning and stating that Naruto always looking out for others. 4 months after Naruto's exile, 1 month after the battle, in a town close to Main Wave Village. A demon was said to be present in this town, so Naruto was in a village close to Main Wave Village. He was wearing Hinata's jacket, black shinobi pants, black and red sandals, and a mesh shirt underneath as he strolled through the streets. Just as he was approaching an alley, he heard someone say, "You damn demon, you should just die." With a growl, Naruto went to investigate. He almost killed everyone there after seeing a little girl, who he guessed was 6 but was underweight due to malnutrition, sobbing on the ground with cuts and bruises all around her. While people were shouting obscenities at her, he saw that she had crimson hair, a tail, and fox ears. "What the hell are you doing?" he screamed. As everyone shuddered in terror, a man intoxicatedly uttered, teaching this demon a lesson. With a growl, Naruto turned to face the man and declared, "I will show you a true demon if you don't leave now." After they all ran away in terror, Naruto composed himself and approached the girl, who was still crying. Seeing that she had nothing on, he leaned down and put the jacket on her to hide everything. After picking her up, he inquired, "Are you okay? Other than the cuts and bruises, is there anything else wrong?" worriedly. She nodded and said, "I'm okay. What's your name?" she said quietly. "Naruto Uzumaki. What's yours?" he asked with a smile. With a slight smile, she said, "Hizuka, shy, that's a beautiful and very fitting name. Would you like to come with me, Hizuka-chan?" Naruto asked, laughing. "Okay, Naruto." She blushed and said, "Will you be my Otto? Otto father?" "I'm not sure if I'm old enough, but yes, I'll be your Otto," he said with a smile. She grinned, pressed herself against his chest, and dozed off. "Who's she, Naruto?" Tsunami asked when Naruto entered Tazuna's home. "She's the demon we've been hearing about. I decided to bring her. She thinks of me as her Otto," Naruto replied. "When she's healed, will you help me get some clothes for her?" asked Naruto as Tsunami grinned. With a nod, Tsunami said, "Yeah, I'll help you." Grinning, he said, "Thanks." After bringing her upstairs, Naruto laid her down and fell asleep. Upon awakening, he noticed Hizuka on his chest and grinned to wake her. He gave her a gentle shake. With a smile on her face, she said, "Good morning, Naruto." He said, "Good morning, Hizuka-chan. Are you hungry?" as he grinned and scratched her ears, causing her to purr. She moaned in her stomach and replied, "Yes, Naruto. I need to ask you something before we get something to eat," he said with a smile. "What is it, Naruto?" she inquired. He said with a grin, "Do you want to become a ninja like me? Also, since you don't have a last name, would you like to use mine?" Yes, I want to be a ninja and would love your last name," she said with a smile and a hug. "Okay, I'll go get you some clothes and gear later today," he said, grinning as he lifted her up. She nodded, and since she was only 2.5 feet tall, the average is 4 feet, he decided to get her checked out because she was extremely short for her age. 6 months following Naruto's Konoha exile in Uzumaki, Naruto would be extremely unhappy with something that was going on in the Leaf Village. The Hyuga Council had determined that Hyuga Hinata would marry Inuzuka Kiba and receive the caged bird seal. Within a year, Hinata was currently sobbing uncontrollably over the news in her room. Even though Hiyashi was enraged, he was powerless. He sincerely hoped Naruto learned about it and took action. Approximately the same time as Tazuna's wave, as Naruto watched Hizuka perform exercises, he reflected on the events of the previous 2 months. With the assistance of Tsunami, Naruto first got Hizuka some clothes. She wore a black long-sleeve shirt with red flames and Hinata's jacket on top, along with matching pants and black ninja sandals. Since she had pleaded with him and he was powerless to refuse her anything, he assumed that if she kept the jacket rather than him, nothing would go wrong. Then, like he had been doing, he had made the decision to get her tools and apply resistance seals to her. She was healthy, according to the doctor he had taken her to, but she was underweight due to malnutrition and would likely remain small for the rest of her life. That there was nothing wrong with her pleased him. He had been practicing ninjutsu for 3 months and had already mastered 4 of the 8 inner gates during their training. Additionally, His daughter had grown stronger and was comparable to the majority of new genin. He took great pride in his daughter. He recalled inquiring about her from Chitsuki Naruto's Mindscape flashback from 2 months ago. "Hey Chitsuki, why does Hizuka have fox ears and a tail?" Naruto inquired. Chitsuki replied, "Her father was probably a kitsune who seduced a human woman into being with him." "Oh, okay," Naruto said, nodding, "and would I be able to make her live forever like me and Hinata will?" "Yes, you will be able to. I know you view her as your real daughter," Chitsuki said with a smile. "Yes," Naruto said with a smile, "she is very precious to me." "I know and I understand she was treated badly like you and you want to help," Chitsuki said, nodding. With a laugh, Naruto began to leave, stating, "Yeah, I do." Final flashback: Hizuka was running toward Naruto when he looked up, and when he picked her up, she asked, "How was that auto?" "That was great, you're getting better every day," he said with a broad smile. She hugged him and grinned back, saying, "It's all thanks to you, Otto." As he gave her a hug in return, he said, "I'm so proud you, daughter." "I love you, Otto," she said. "I love you to Hizuka-chan," he said. In an unidentified place a shadowy figure said, "Pain-sama, we have found the 9 tails." Pain said, "Good, send Itachi and Kisame after him." The man went to tell Itachi and Kisame, saying, "As you wish." Outside of Konoha, Root Base, a Root operative questioned, "Danzo-sama, what are we going to do about the 9 tails?" "We won't do anything for now. We do not want to make him an enemy after what he did to us." He said, "As you wish, Danzo-sama," and walked away. After a week, Hizuka was riding on Naruto's shoulders. As they walked down the street, when they turned around, they noticed 2 men wearing Akatsuki robes standing there. "Daughter," Naruto said, stopping and setting Hizuka down, "I want you to run to Tazuna's and stay there till I come back." She wanted to object, but she saw the expression on Otto's face, so she nodded, gave him a hug, and hurried to Tazuna's. When Kisame said, "Cute girl, you go there, can you go take him, I'll get the girl," he got up and turned to face them. They felt the most heinous murderous intent ever and froze before Itachi could react. "You will not touch her at all," snarled Naruto. After changing into 3 tails, Naruto ran up to Kisame and placed his hand on his chest, threatening to kill them both if they even considered touching her. Prior to them speaking, Naruto shouted, "Rasengan Bomb." 9 months or so after Naruto's exile, in Wave Kitsune daggers, which resembled Naruto's but had 2 foxes on the hilt, were obtained by Naruto and his daughter Hizuka. He had improved his shadow cloning skills and was able to create up to 5 without creating any signs. He could also give the impression that he could move at extremely high speeds by simply creating a clone and replacing it, but you could never tell because his clones didn't emit any smoke or sound when they appeared. Additionally, he had acquired 5 chakra gates and was able to perform the front and reverse lotus. However, he was unable to enter the 6th gate for an unknown reason. He entered his mindscape when he suddenly sensed that Chitsuki wanted to speak. The mindscape of Naruto. Naruto said, "Hey Chitsuki, what's up?" Chitsuki remarked, "I think I know why you can't use any higher gates." "What, really?" inquired Naruto inquisitively. "Yes, I believe it's time for you to become a Hanyu," Chitsuki said with a laugh. "Oh, okay," Naruto said. "Okay, you're going to need to go into the woods where it'll begin, but before that you need to ask Tazuna to talk to Konoha about sending a team to the exams," replied Chitsuki. "Why?" inquired Naruto. Chitsuki said, "So you can get into the village legally." "Okay. Anything else?" Naruto inquired. "Yes, once the transformation is done we will be heading to the land of lightning so you can learn how to be a leader and how to treat people," said Chitsuki. "Okay. It's not that exciting, but I understand that I need to know it," Naruto sighed and walked away. Inside Tazuna's home, outside the mindscape, when Naruto entered the kitchen, he saw Tazuna and Hizuka seated at the table. He said with a grin, "Hey Tazuna, I was wondering if you could ask Tsunade to let you send a team for the exams in 6 months?" "Yay, sure, I'll talk to her, but if you're going, what name should I use for you?" replied Tazuna. "Tell her I'm Arashi Sarai and change Hizuka's last name to Sarai." "Okay, and who will be the 3rd Mimiber?" "Oh, that'll be Shigetsu Sarai." "Yay, Shi-chan will go with us," said Hizuka with a smile. She rushed up to embrace Naruto, who replied, "Yeah, she will. But I have to go into the woods for 3 days to do something before we do anything." "Okay, Hazu-chan." She hugged him and said, "Okay daddy, I love you and will see you when you get back." He gave her a hug in return and said, "I love you too, I'll be back in 3 days. During that time, you can take a break and not have to train." Naruto then departed the house to transform into a Hanyu. Konoha. At the same time, Hinata stood in front of the 10 members of the Hyuga Council. The council's oldest member said, "Hyuga Hinata, the council has decided that the caged bird seal will be placed on you and that you will get married when Inuzuka Kiba becomes a Chunin." "No, honorable council," Hinata, on the verge of tears, said. "The seal will be placed in 1 week." Meeting adjourned. As Hinata left, she began to cry in the hallway and thought, "Naruto, where are you? I need you." In the forest, after making his way into the woods for roughly 5 miles, Naruto decided that was far enough to find out what he was supposed to do. He entered his mindscape. The mindscape of Naruto. Naruto said, "Hey Chitsuki, what do I do now?" "First off, do you remember that jutsu that I had Shigetsu teach you 2 months ago?" replied Chitsuki. "Yay, I do. Well, I never explained what it is. It's basically an advanced henge that can't be dispelled by someone else, and the only way for it to besides you dispelling it, which is if you run out of chakra." "Oh, now I see why you wanted me to learn it. Yes, now when we're done you will have fox ears on your head, 7 tails, and will get the last 2 over the next 6 months. One of your eyes will turn a deep violet, and you will be in the body you would have at 18. Okay, now how do we start? Exit your mind and meditate as deeply as possible." Beyond mindscape, a red layer of chakra covered Naruto's body as he began to meditate. After 3 days, Naruto opened his eyes as the code of chakra abruptly vanished. One eye was the same old ocean blue, and the other was a deep violet. He was around 6 feet 2 inches and his hair reached his mid-back. When he stood up, 2 things stood out above the others. His head's fuzzy ears came first, followed by the 7 tails circling behind him. His tails were roughly 2 feet long, and they both had crimson and blonde fur. Stretching out, Naruto remarked, "Wow, I feel great, but I'm really hungry. I should probably get back to Tazuna's," he said, adding, "Hizuka is probably worried sick." He decided to check his current speed while walking, so he let go of his resistance seals and began to run. After 2 minutes he was already back, and Naruto couldn't believe he was at least twice as fast as before. He entered and went to see Hizuka upstairs. She was lying on the bed with the Hinata's jacket in her hands when he opened the door. He approached her, picked her up, and grinned. "Oto, you're back," she exclaimed as she woke up and gave him a hug. "Yes, I am, and I'm glad to see you too," he said, giving her a hug in return. He changed, and she remarked, "You look like me now, Daddy." "Yes, I do, and now we match, so you don't have to feel bad about your appearance, okay?" she said, grabbing one of his tails and giving it a hug. "Okay, Daddy, now that you look like me, it's okay," she said with a smile and a nod. "Good, now get your stuff ready, we're going to be leaving soon. I need to talk to Tazuna." "Okay, Dad," she said as she went to get her belongings, and he went downstairs. "Hey Tazuna, what did Tsunade say?" he asked, noticing Tazuna at the table. She said that was okay and to be in the village 2 weeks before the exam, Tazuna said, not particularly surprised because he was accustomed to this type of thing with Naruto. "Thanks so much Tazuna, I'll repay you one day, I promise." "There's no need, Naruto, after what you've done for us," Tazuna remarked with a laugh. 5 miles outside of Konoha, approximately 6 months later, 15 months after Naruto's exile. Under his kitsune henge, Naruto stood at a height of roughly 5 feet 5 inches and had red hair that was the same length as before. Additionally, his eyes were a deep crimson, his tails were gone, and his ears were normal and in the proper position. Hizuka, wearing the same henge, was on his shoulders, but it only made her tail and ears disappear. She was around 3 feet 9 after spending 11 months with Naruto. Shigetsu, who was about 5 feet tall, was walking next to him. She was wearing a henge, which made her appear human. She had brown eyes, waist-length black hair, and a C-cup breast. Each of them was dressed to resemble a black shirt, black shinobi pants, and sandals. Naruto was wearing black flames on a crimson coat. Since they didn't need their kitsune daggers, Naruto and Hizuka both kept their daggers in their sheaths. "This is Shi Sarai, this is Hizuka Sarai, my daughter in all but blood," Naruto said as they approached the 2 gate guards. "Guess who they were? Here are our exam papers." Azumo took a look at the papers he gave them and said, "Seems alright, go on in." After Naruto gave a nod, they entered. "Did he seem familiar to you?" Kagetsu asked, turning to face Azumo. "Yes, he seemed very familiar, it felt almost creepy," Azumo said, nodding. After making the decision to visit Tuchi, Naruto inquired, "Are you too hungry?" "Yay Daddy, let's go eat," exclaimed Hizuka after they nodded. "Okay, I'll go to my favorite place to eat," Naruto said with a laugh. Once they were seated in Ichiraku, Naruto placed Hizuka on a stool and greeted him, "Hey Tuchi-oji, my good friend." When Tuchi turned, she saw that it was Naruto. "Hello, my good friend," he said with a smile. "It's Arashi now." "Oh yes Arashi, what are you doing here?" "We are in the village for the exams and I thought I'd show my daughter here the best place in the world to get ramen." Hizuka exclaimed. "What, they have ramen? Yay, I see she has your father's enthusiasm for ramen. So I should keep them coming," Tuchi said, laughing. "Yay, her appetite is almost as large as mine." After half an hour, Hizuka 9, she 3, and Naruto had consumed 12 bowls. They began to depart after Naruto made the payment. Tuchi handed him a piece of paper and said, "Wait, here are things that have happened." After nodding in acceptance, Naruto uttered the words, "Thanks Tuchi-oji." They then headed to the hotel where they would be staying. Naruto pulled out the paper to read. After they were inside, everyone was okay, and Hizuka was taking a bath. "I thought you ought to be aware of Hinata's situation. Naruto, the caged bird seal has been applied to Hinata, who will wed Kiba upon his conversion to Chunin. I just thought you should know that. I know you'll take care of it. Remember to stop by again as soon as you can to see Amai and me. We will be cheering you on because we care about you." Naruto was going to take action against the Hyuga Council because he was incensed about what had happened to Hinata. They lay down after Hizuka finished, and Naruto dreamed of torturing the Hyuga Council. After 2 weeks, they hadn't really done anything in the 2 weeks since they had arrived in the village. Hizuka, Kagetsu, and Naruto were on their way to the academy for the first exam. Hizuka was on Naruto's shoulders as they entered the building. Naruto laughed when he realized they were employing the same trick from earlier. "Come on, we still need to go up some." They noticed they were the first when they ascended the stairs. They waited while he set Hizuka down. After 10 minutes or so, people began to arrive. Naruto grinned as he saw Hinata's team enter. He chuckled as Hizuka approached Kiba and remarked, "Doggy-chan, you smell like dog shit, just so you know." Indignant, Kiba exclaimed, "Oh yeah, pipsqueak." Kiba sprang back to strike her, but his neck was suddenly chilled. When he looked around, he saw that someone was holding a dagger to his neck. None of the Konoha 12 had seen him move, not even Lee, and they all gasped. "If you touch my daughter or insult her again, I'll gut you, you mutt." Despite his perspiration, Kiba said, "Oh, yeah, I could beat you." "I doubt any of you Konoha 12 could beat me. I know your weaknesses," Naruto remarked with a laugh. "Oh yay?" Shikamaru said as everyone gasped. "Yeah," he said, listing everyone's weakness. "Kiba. If I take out your puppy you're screwed," Shino said. "Your bugs can't eat my chakra for certain reasons." Shino then sent one of his bugs to consume his chakra, but it perished. Hinata blushed deeply as Neji kissed her hand and said, "I doubt I could harm a lovely lady such as yourself. Both of you have blind spots on your Byakugan." "Lee. If I trap you in a genjutsu you're done. Can't hit what you can't see," Tenten said. Ino said, "If you went in my mind you'd have nightmares for a month." Shoji. "Even though you're a powerhouse you're too slow to hit me." "You're weak as fuck," said Sakura. Sasuke said, "Your Sharingan can see me but your body can't react." Shikamaru tried it and both of them raised their hands, saying, "Your shadow isn't strong enough to catch me." "Yes, he can," Kiba said with a laugh. "No, he's forcing me to do this somehow," Shikamaru remarked. "If you know how you can turn a shadow back on someone," replied Naruto. After letting go, Naruto turned to face Sai and inquired, "Who are you?" His voice was monotone as he said, "Sai, member of Team 7. Okay, you might be able to hit me since I don't know what you can do." Kiba replied, "Doesn't matter because once I become a Chunin I get this fine bitch." Hinata shivered when Kiba placed his arm on her shoulder. "If you ever insult or touch a woman that doesn't want you to, I'll tear your arms off," Naruto said in a voice that sounded almost demonic as he abruptly grabbed his hand, twisted it off her, and popped it. With sudden intent to kill, Ibiki yelled, "Everyone shut your mouth." Everyone began to perspire, with the exception of Naruto's group, and he unleashed some that dwarfed Ibiki's and even caused him to perspire. "Anyways, everyone go in and sit down by your teammates." All of them went to sit beside their teammates. "One teammate will now enter the 2 rooms adjacent to us. The last teammate will then enter 1 room, and someone hanged will enter the others," Ibiki said as he walked to the front. Everyone nodded, and Shigetsu entered 1 room while Hizuka entered another. 5 minutes later, Ibiki instructed the others to move into 1 room while someone hanged went into the other. Naruto proceeded to the appropriate room alongside Hizuka. "Okay, now you need to think of a way to figure out if this is your teammate," Ibiki replied. According to Hizuka, "Oh, that's easy." As she turned to face Naruto, she said, "Daddy, please release some killing intent on me." With a nod, Naruto let go of some. That's not daddy. Daddy won't let me feel his killing intent. With a sigh, Ibiki said, all right, you can return to the other room. Alongside Shigetsu, Ibiki told them that they needed to determine whether it was the true teammate. Okay, that's easy, replied she. Arashi, what's my full name? Naruto approached her and spoke to her in a whisper. Yeep, that's my teammate. With another sigh, Ibiki instructed them to return to the other room. Returning to the main room after an hour of waiting by Naruto's group, 27 teams comprising all 12 Konoha members were present. Ibiki said, okay, all of you have passed the Mitarashi. Anko, the deadly and sexy proctor of Exam 2, was yelled by someone as the window suddenly flew open. To Naruto, Hizuka exclaimed, I like her daddy. Naruto remarked, yes, she is an interesting person. Anko yelled back out the window, okay, maggots, get to training ground number 44 in 45 minutes or you'll be out of the exams. After leaving and arriving in 6 minutes, Naruto said, I'm going ahead, you guys don't have to rush. Naruto took a seat and began to meditate when Anko appeared out of nowhere. How in the hell did you get here before me, Gaki? Asked Anko. With a sheepish smile, Naruto declared, I'm fast. I see. 35 minutes later, people began to arrive, collapsed, exhausted. Neji asked, how long have you been here? As Lee's team approached him. About 35 minutes. As their jaw dropped, Lee exclaimed, Yash, I wish to fight you in the exams. I'm sure we will. Bushy brow. Before Naruto's group approached, Hizuka greeted him with a hug and the words, hi daddy. Hey Hazu-chan. Hinata then approached and said, I wanted to thank you for sticking up for me earlier. It's no problem, that guy is a jerk. Anko began to speak, okay Gakis, this is the second exam, the Forest of Death. You will receive a bell and will need to get 2 more for your teammates. Everything is allowed. Naruto cut her off before she could finish, saying, okay, we get it, you psychopath. He caught it and spun around, pinning her to a tree with the kunai around her neck. Anko threw a kunai at him, intending to cut his cheek, and appeared to be behind him to everyone. We're fierce, aren't we? Naruto said when Naruto began to feel up for Anko. Everyone gasped and he said, you got some nice ones, Anko. Anko was red in the face and attempted to flee, but Naruto intervened, slashed her cheek, and licked the blood. Your blood is great, Anko, wish I could taste more, but we should continue with exam. She walked back up front after Naruto got off her and gave her the kunai. Nearly all of the guys, including Neji, had nosebleeds by this point. Ahem, anyway, as I was saying, anything is allowed, even killing you. Have 5 days to get 3 bells and reach the tower in the center of the forest. Everyone proceeded to their designated gate after ringing their bell. Naruto and Shi rushed in with Hizuka on Naruto's shoulders as soon as the gates opened. Naruto commanded them to stop before they had gone very far. He instructed 3 groups of shadow clones to stop and said, I want you all to find 2 bells, and when your group dins them, take them to the team I assign you. They hurried off after he gave them their team. Okay, now since I grabbed 2 bells off Anko when she tried to attack me, let's head to the tower. With a nod, they both set off for it. They arrived after an hour or so and entered, where they saw Anko seated. How in the world are you already done? Anko asked upon seeing them. I took the bells you had when you tried to attack me, Naruto said with a laugh. So that's why you did that? That, and I wanted to feel that great bust of yours. Whatever, there is rooms all over this place. Pick one for the next 5 days, she said, flushed. You guys go ahead, I need to talk to Anko. After giving a nod, they departed. Anko questioned, why do you want to talk to me? Well, if you want I can take that curse mark of yours off. What? How? I know a seal to counteract it. How? Jiraiya of the Sannin couldn't remove it. I was trained by someone better, that old pervert. If you can, then when and where? Anko asked, unable to see that he was lying. Come here 1 week after this exam is over, okay. He left for his chamber. Since his exile, he had studied the curse mark and caged bird seals, so he did know how to get rid of it. 5 days later, Naruto's group and the other 12 members of Konoha had advanced past the second round. Tsunade got up to say, congrats for passing the second round, but we will have to do 1 random battle to even out the battles for the third round. Sai appeared on the board first, followed by Arashi and Naruto. According to Sai, I forfeit. With a nod, Naruto remarked, good choice. Now everyone draw a number. Tsunade said the matches were as follows after each person had drawn a number. First match. Hizuka vs Shi. Match 2. Lee vs Naruto. Match 3. Shino vs Tenten. Match 4. Kiba vs Sasuke. Match 5. Ino vs Sakura. Match 6. Shikamaru vs Choji. Match 7. Hinata vs Neji. Okay, everyone be at the stadium in 2 weeks. Then everyone went a week later at the tower. When Anko entered one of the rooms, Naruto was sketching a complicated pattern on the floor that extended all the way to the wall. After raising his head, Naruto remarked, "Good, I just finished the floor seal." Anko said, "Okay, what do I have to do?" while massaging her neck. "I need you to get naked, you can't be serious." "Yes, I am. I know you don't want to, but I need you to." "You can do it, can't you? Why would I spend all this time drawing out this huge design if I couldn't?" She took off her clothes and said, "Okay, I'll believe you." "Okay, now I need to draw out about 500 seals on you. It'll take about an hour. You cannot move." "Okay." Naruto began sketching Anko with seals. An hour or so later, Naruto got to his feet, finished. "Okay, now what? I'll tell you now, this will hurt a lot." I don't care, I want this curse gone." Naruto stopped on a sign she had never seen before, nodded, and performed well over 200 hand signals. Anko screamed as all of the seals rushed to her neck after he placed his hand on it and uttered the words, "Demonic Seal Crusher." The curse didn't hurt this much, and Anko experienced the worst pain of her life. 5 minutes later, it ceased, and Anko fainted. When he picked her up, Naruto sighed and remarked, "She did good to not pass out till it was over." He noticed that where her seal had been, there was now only a burn mark on her neck. After forcing a clone to seize her clothing, he removed his cloak and placed it over her. He proceeded to his hotel room after that. In the hotel, Kagetsu saw Naruto enter through the window and gave him a nod. After bringing her to his room, he placed her on the bed. She wouldn't wake up for around 24 hours. She woke up around 10 hours later. "You're stronger than I thought. Not many people could stay conscious through that, and fewer could wake up after only 10 hours. Is it gone?" With a smile, Naruto gave her a mirror. After giving it a quick glance, she leapt on him and planted a kiss on him. "Thank you so much. It's no problem, I'm glad to help. You should probably get home now." She nodded, dressed, and walked out. "I need to take a very cold shower." Exam Stadium 1 week later. Up top, everyone was waiting for it to start. She and Hizuka both forfeited the first match after the proctor called it. He leapt down there just before the proctor said, "Start," when they called the second match. "Hyuga Council," shouted Naruto, "I would like to propose an offer." Everyone was curious to hear what this unidentified ninja had to say. Hyuga Council member. "Oh, what would that be? Arashi, isn't it?" "Well, yes and no, but we'll get back to that." "All right, what is this proposal?" "If I fight and beat all of the other contestants, then Hinata Hyuga will leave the village." One of the Hyuga Council members said, "Let's say we're considering it, what do we get if you lose?" "I'll light myself on fire." "Why would we care if you were lit on fire?" a member of the council asked, perplexed. "Well, I guess I should reveal who I really am to clear things up." Everyone gasped when Naruto released his jutsu. The most striking features of Naruto were his 9 3-foot-long tails and the fox ears on his head. He was 6 feet 2 inches, had crimson streaks in his hair that reached his mid-back, and was well built without being eerie. "Hazu-chan and Shi-chan, come on down and show everyone your true self." The sight of Hizuka, who appeared to be a miniature version of Naruto, caught everyone off guard. Once more they both wore the same color pants and sandals, but she was wearing Hinata's jacket, while Naruto was wearing a red cloak with black flames that hung down to reveal his chest. She also had blonde hair, but it was the opposite of Naruto's, with red and blonde streaks. Even though Shigetsu had not changed, everyone was still taken aback. One of the Hyuga Council members said, "Demon, what are you doing here? You were exiled." "It's legal because I'm here under wave. How does my offer sound now?" They were thrilled to be able to kill the demon, then take his daughter and use her to strengthen the village. Nearly everyone in the stadium experienced the most horrible and heinous sense of murderous intent they had ever experienced. "Even if I lose this wager, I will return to tear this village to pieces if anyone tries to hurt my darling daughter." "Do we have an agreement now?" Naruto said. Naruto smiled and took out a contract form after they all nodded. "Now all I need is for the Hyuga clan leader and Hokage to sign this." Tsunade and Hiyashi showed up and both said, "Okay." They signed it, and Naruto uttered the words, "I'll take care of her, I promise," in a low voice that only he could hear before Hiyashi left. Hiyashi returned to his seat with a genuine smile and a nod. With the form put away, Naruto uttered the words, "Okay, all the contestants except Hinata come on down." They all showed up looking the same, with the exception that Akamaru was larger than a large dog and taller. "Okay, now all of you can get a free move on me, Naruto. I'd rather not have you dead," Neji replied. "Don't worry Neji, I'll be alright. I'll go first then." 8 trigrams 64 palms, Naruto simply stood there, taking each blow. "How come you're unaffected?" Neji inquired. "I have yokai now. Yokai is more potent than chakra, so it doesn't affect me." Neji said, "I see," with comprehension. Tenten said, "My turn." When she used the Twin Rising Raiden Dragon technique, Naruto encircled his body with wind chakra, causing all of the weapons to veer past him without ever striking him. "How didn't I hit you? I surrounded my body in wind chakra." Lee, go into 5th gate and do Hidden Lotus. Naruto, are you certain? Naruto nodded. Okay, no one saw Lee enter the 5th gate, but Naruto entered the 3rd. Lee ran at Naruto and attempted to kick him in the air, but Naruto blocked it. Lee then attempted to punch him again, but he kept avoiding or blocking his blows. "How are you doing that, Naruto? I went into the 2nd gate before you ran at me." "How many can you go into?" "I can do 6 and I'll never be able to do anymore because I'm a Hanyu." Shikamaru remarked, "I already know I can't do anything. Even if you could you wouldn't." "Yay," Choji said, "I guess my try." When Choji said, "Expansion Jutsu," and then, "Human Boulder," he began to roll in Naruto's direction. Naruto then lifted his hand and covered it with yokai. He flew back and went out of expansion when Choji crashed into his palm. With Choji gone, Ino uttered, "My turn? Okay Ino, I'll make it so you're only out a couple hours." Mind Transfer Jutsu was used by Ino, and before she could even fall, she was back in her body. Screaming bloody murder, she fell backwards, but Naruto caught her before she hit the ground. "She should wake up in a few hours and won't remember anything from my mind," he said as he drove her to Inoichi. Sakura said, "Now I can show you I've become stronger," as he lowered himself again. Sakura tried to punch Naruto in the chest as she ran at him, but he grabbed her fist and slapped her away. Sakura on the ground questioned, "How did you catch that punch? It was super powered like Tsunade-sensei's." "I'm a lot stronger than that." He approached the nearest wall, punched it, and then collapsed after hitting everything within 30 feet of the spider webbed. "See, your turn Sasuke." His strength astounded everyone, but Sasuke approached and said, "I'll show you Dobi." Naruto simply laughed and grabbed Sasuke's wrist as Sasuke launched a Chidori at him. Then Naruto threw Sasuke after saying, "Don't get full of yourself, Uchiha. We already know what happens to your beetles, Shino, don't bother killing more." Shino grinned beneath his coat as he nodded, but no one could see it. "Now I'll show you Hinata should be mine," replied Kiba. Akamaru transformed into the man-beast clone, as Kiba and he assumed their respective stances. When they threw Fang over Fang at Naruto, he began to laugh hysterically and was struck in the chest. Kiba questioned, "How are you not even scratched?" as they came to a stop. Stopping his laughter, Naruto uttered, "Because you are a weak fool." Even though his voice made everyone uneasy, he went on, "Now let me show you the origins of your beast mimicry. Observe the real beast jutsu, kitsune art. Become the beast," exclaimed Naruto as he began to stoop and his hands touched the ground. As Naruto's hair grew 6 inches, his eyes turned a deep scarlet, his hand and foot nails grew longer than usual, and his longer than average canines grew to about 3 inches, everyone gasped. "I'm sorry to most of you, but I have to knock you out now." The majority of them nodded, and after 2 seconds, nobody was paying attention. After returning to his normal self, Naruto said, "Okay, then, I'll take Hinata and be gone now." As soon as he said that, Sound Nin began to pour in through the hole he had created. Naruto took the unconscious Genin to the medics while everyone else was running around yelling. After finishing, he approached Tsunade and inquired, "How many?" After giving him a quick glance, she said, "About 3,000. He grinned and said, "Then I'll only need 3. He jumped to the middle of the arena and went through 15 hand seals before she could ask him. After finishing, he shouted, "Kitsune summoning, 3 guardians," and slammed his hands down. 3 enormous foxes as large as Gamabunta were visible when the summoning smoke cleared. Among them, one inquired, "What do you need, Naruto-sama?" "You 3 protect this village and kill anyone with the sound headband." "Yes, Naruto-sama," they all said, and they went off to defend the village. Subsequently, Naruto directed yokai towards his throat and exclaimed, "The foxes are assisting you. Nobody from Konoha is attacking them." Following his return to Tsunade, Naruto remarked, "There, that should take care of that. You're a knucklehead, you think?" He caught her attempt at a punch. "I'd rather you didn't do that." Quietly, she said, "Okay. Now I'm going to have some fun." He was having so much fun that he didn't even realize she was beaten down and Hizuka was taken prisoner by Kabuto when Naruto leapt into a crowd and began hacking away at them, severing two people's throats with his daggers. "Okay, I need to end this, I'm tired of these auto nin," said Naruto. Drawing a scroll the size of a summoning contract, Naruto unfolded it and read through more than 24 hand signals. He concluded by saying, "I call forth, Hitakari, Manslayer. You are all in for a treat." When the smoke cleared, Naruto was standing there brandishing a 6-foot-long scythe with a 1-foot curved blade on the end, which appeared to be made of bones and skulls, and a blade that everyone thought was black steel but was actually kitsune steel. Naruto had summoned something from the scroll. When Naruto first snatched up the scythe, everyone felt as though they were going to die. "Everyone who isn't an enemy, leave the arena now," smirked Naruto. Naruto took out a dozen seal tags and tossed them into the air as all of the Konoha nin immediately departed. Demonic barrier. Last one standing. Now no one can leave unless you can kill me. What followed could only be described as a massacre, with about 1,000 nin in the arena and in the stands, and another 1,500 already dead. Naruto shouted, "Now come at me if you want to leave," as he stood there with the scythe resting against his shoulder. Although the nin were afraid, they understood that defeating the man in the middle of them was their only chance. As they rushed toward him, he smiled and lowered his resistance seals by roughly half, from level 40 to level 20. When he reached the center, he yelled, "Hitakari! Soul Stealer activate," after charging at the first group of people. After spinning and chopping off 10 of their heads, a purple substance that resembled chakra emerged from each nin and entered a mouth on the side. He leapt to his feet, sliced one individual in two, and dove into a large ninja group. "Hanyu! Bloodwave!" was screamed as he ran his thumb along the scythe while biting it. He slammed the scythe's end into the ground, killing a quarter of the people within 50 yards with a wave of blood-red yokai. He yelled, "Kitsune style! Foxfire!" as he leapt into the air, sliced through a couple dozen more, and laughed. More than 150 nin were instantly killed when he bit the inside of his cheek and sprayed a wave of blue-white fire into them, and another 100 were killed by the shockwave. Upon landing, he struck the ground with his scythe and struck his fingertips with a charged yokai. "This is a lot of fun, chain lightning, demon style." He extinguished the lightning, and each one scorched 25 people to death. He released his seals completely, snatched up his scythe, and burst out laughing. He paused abruptly and looked up, saying, "This has been fantastic, but it has to end, true silent killing. Don't blink." He entered the third gate. 15 seconds later, he slammed his scythe down and suddenly materialized back in the same spot where he had been before, seemingly disappearing from everyone except Tsunade and Kakashi, who had his Sharingan on as strongly as possible and were still only a blur to them. All of the Auto Nin erupted in blood as soon as the scythe touched the ground. Some were sliced to pieces, some had their throats cut, some had their heads severed, and some had been chopped in half. They were all terrified by what they had witnessed, including Tsunade, the Jonin senseis, the majority of the Konoha 12, Hizuka, Anko, Ibiki, and some masked Anbu. "Why hasn't the barrier gone down? There shouldn't be anyone else in here," Naruto thought as he stopped laughing and looked around, closed his eyes, and focused on the arena, sensing she nearby. She was lying down, bruised and cut all over, in human form, and he knelt down and held her head in his lap. He released the barrier and said, "Shi-chan, what happened? Where is Hazu?" She said softly as she opened her eyes, "I'm so sorry, Naruto-kun, I tried to protect her, but that man Kabuto came and took her. I know you were get some rest, I'll get her back, just sleep." She closed her eyes and nodded, and since her clothes were ripped, he took his coat off his waist and wrapped it around her before carrying her to Tsunade. He approached Tsunade and declared, "I don't want anyone but you and Shizune Nichan in her room. If anyone touches her, I'll tear the hospital down." Everyone shuddered as he approached, sensing a cold, dark malice in the air. After Tsunade took her, Naruto approached the Konoha 12 remnants and inquired, "Where is Sasuke and Hinata?" Shino approached and said, "We believe that Sasuke left to Orochimaru and knew Orochimaru wanted a Hyuga, so he snuck up on Hinata and knocked her out to take with them, while everyone else looked down." "Good, now I won't feel bad when I use a full-scale, eternal suffering," Naruto said with a sudden, icy laugh. Kurenai gasped, but no one else understood what he was talking about. She exclaimed, "What, I thought that was a myth." Sakura asked, "What is this eternal suffering?" as she approached. "I only know about through many years of studying genjutsu. It's said to be the greatest genjutsu ever, but it's thought to be a legend." Naruto said, "I assure you that it is not a legend." "Well, even if it is real, then casting one that large would take a sacrifice of around 1,000 souls. What do you think I just collected in that massacre?" he asked with a sly smile. Sakura questioned, "Wait, what does this technique do?" "It's an attack to be used by sacrifice of another soul to send someone else to the lowest level of hell for eternity. But he's going to use one to cover an entire base of Orochimaru's, which would cost around 1,000 souls. "Exactly, and another way to describe it is that it's basically eternal Tsukuyomi," Naruto replied. As Kakashi began to perspire, Naruto went on, "Oh, and Kakashi, this is for backstabbing me." "Erase," was spoken by Naruto as he materialized in front of Kakashi and tapped him above the left eye. Kakashi collapsed and fainted. Sakura rushed forward and grabbed him. She asked, "What did you do?" after glancing at Naruto. "I just paid him back by taking his Sharingan away." "How? Who do you think created the Sharingan?" "The Kyuubi created it and gave it to the first Uchiha as a gift for them being nice. Since he created it, I can take it away," he said. "Now I'm going to go get my daughter and Hina-chan back." While everyone gasped, he continued to walk away, saying, "When I get back I will handle the Hyugas and then leave, hopefully for the last time." Everyone was left stunned as he departed. About 3 hours later, Naruto used his already excellent nose to channel yokai and locate the base. Since getting his daughter and Hinata back was more important than anything else, he simply entered the door when he found it. "Where are the 2 girls that were brought here earlier?" he asked the first person he saw. The man knew it wasn't a question, so he said, "They're on the bottom floor." The smirking Naruto said, "Good, you can now die normally for telling me." Naruto reached out and crushed the man's skull before he could react. After glancing around, Naruto stomped and smashed the ground beneath him, falling 3 floors and landing without flinching. Sensing their proximity, he approached a wall and demolished it. He noticed that Hizuka and Hinata were bound to a table, but they appeared to be unharmed. Running up to Kabuto, he said, "I'll have fun with you later." In order to get behind him and give him a neck chop, he went to the 5th gate and released his seals, knocking him out in the process. He proceeded to untie the girls. After sealing Kabuto in a scroll, he called forth 2 foxes after noticing that they were okay. "I need you 2 to transform to a human form and talkie them outside of Konoha, but don't take them in without me." They took the 2 and departed since they could tell Master was furious. After they left, he walked to the center of the hiding place and opened Hitakari. He used some tags to create a barrier around him. When he arrived, he began sketching circles inside of each other. There were 9 circles. When he was finished, he slammed his scythe down after walking to the center. "I call forth Shinigami." The Shinigami's ghostly form materialized out of nowhere. His tone was eerie as he asked, "What do you want, 9 tails?" "I offer 1,000 souls, so you will send anyone in this place to the bottom circle of hell." He held up his hand and sucked 1,000 souls from it, saying, "I will accept this sacrifice. Now, mass eternal suffering." You could see a huge purple light beam and hear the cries of fear and horror for miles. After 2 hours, outside of Konoha, approaching the foxes, Naruto said, "Thanks for watching them and sorry about earlier." "It's alright, Naruto-sama, if it was our mate and kid we would have been acting the same way." They vanished. After that he created a clone and took Hinata and Hizuka. People considered yelling at the demon as they entered the village, but they were too afraid. They strolled to Shigetsu's room at the hospital, where he noticed 2 additional beds in Tsunade. The clone vanished as they set Hazu and Hinata down. Naruto replied, "Call everyone to the stadium to tomorrow and all of the Hyugas. Don't argue, I'm too tired to argue, Granny." He then placed Hinata's head on his chest and lay down. "Okay," Tsunade said with a sigh. The following day at the stadium, the majority of the ninja and half of the civilians were in the arena, with Naruto standing in the middle. "Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you what happens when you mess with my family." He released Kabuto after unfolding the scroll containing him. Then he released a table and a kit for something. He opened the kit and tied Kabuto to the table. He first used smelling salts to wake Kabuto and gagged him. He then extracted a number of tiny pins that were connected by wires. He poked one into each ankle, wrist, knee, elbow, hip, and shoulder. Kabuto then yelled a series of profanities as he removed the gag. Naruto said, "Keep yelling." He channeled lightning chakra into the wire that held the pins. After a few seconds of silence, during which everyone began to speculate about what was happening, Kabuto abruptly let out a spine-tingling scream. Right now the electricity in the pins is making his joints rub against each other and the pin. Every Hyuga activated their Byakugan, and people nodded their heads in response to their gaze. Naruto increased the voltage gradually during this 10-minute period. After pausing, Naruto uttered the words, "Now for the finale." He stabbed Kabuto in the stomach with a tanto, heating the blade to cauterize the wound. As he was doing so, he repeated this around a dozen times. Kabuto let out a scream that was much worse than the last time he did it. Now his stomach acids are slowly eating his insides. Once more, the Hyuga all watched in horror, but none of them spoke or took any action. This continued for about 3 minutes before Kabuto went limp and stopped yelling and trembling. To remove the body and tidy up the mess, he made some clones. He scowled and vanished, only to reappear 10 minutes later carrying a person he had thrown to the ground. Upon closer inspection, everyone saw that it was a Hyuga with a hole in the place of his heart. A random Hyuga yelled, "What is the meaning of this? This man tried to kill Hinata." Almost everyone paled, including the entire Hyuga Council. "I want the Hyuga Council down here right now." One of them asked, "How did you know he was there?" After they had all arrived. "You didn't think that necklace was for looks, did you? Now I will use a jutsu to judge you, and since I felt the pain my Heim went through to have that seal placed on her, if you voted for her to have it placed, you will feel that pain tenfold. And then you will die." He approached the eldest participant and held his fingers up to his forehead. "Judgment shall be passed." He lifted his fingers and gave him a head tap. The moment he made contact with the man, he collapsed and let out a painful scream. Naruto approached the youngest member of the council. After doing this to the others, Naruto returned to his usual self and grinned. "You are proof there is hope for the Hyugas, thank you." Before leaving, the man grinned and nodded. Naruto began to laugh uncontrollably for several minutes. "Now who wants to see a massacre?" he exclaimed as he looked up after finishing. The tone of his voice made everyone shudder. Suddenly, Danzo and about a dozen rude Anbu showed up. Naruto coolly said, "Hey Danzo, how's it hangin'?" Frowning, Danzo remarked, "We will be taking you in, Fox. I already butchered your army once, why would it change since I've gotten stronger?" Made Naruto laugh. "I've sent men to take your daughter and Hinata." Danzo believed he had him trapped, so he grinned. Danzo was, to put it mildly, shocked when Naruto laughed. "You think I left them alone in this village, you senile fool?" Danzo sighed. "No matter, I will just have my route take you." This statement made Naruto laugh. It didn't work in Wave, it won't work now. Danzo made a sign to attack but didn't respond. Naruto touched seals on his wrist and his kitsune daggers materialized in his hands before any of them could react. After swiftly tallying 8 people, he rushed forward, kicking one and stabbing 2 in the head. As he was doing this, Danzo leapt back and pursued Naruto with his root. After flipping over, Naruto kicked one person in the head, causing their skull to collapse. He cut someone else's throat. He kicked the man in the chest once more, causing it to cave in and sending bones into his heart and lungs, killing him before he hit the ground. Grabbing one, he kicked his head into the ground, slammed him to the ground, and spit out brain matter. He raised his blades, ran to the final 2, and used a move he had learned from the 8-tailed Jinchuriki to extend his arms. Their heads exploded as he sprinted past them and lowered his arms. "So Danzo, what was that supposed to do?" Danzo, he asked, glancing at Danzo. Danzo had removed his arm, but for some reason, both the Sharingan in his head and all of the others were closed. Then he attempted to activate his Mokuton, but it was also unsuccessful. "You think I didn't know about the Sharingans or Mokuton? I could smell the Uchiha and Senju in your blood." While Sasuke merely growled, everyone in the stadium gasped, especially Tsunade. Danzo said, "What did you do to me, boy? When I attacked your first guards, I placed a seal on your hand to stop the Sharingan and Mokuton." Danzo barked, "Tsunade, you can take him away for attacking me, my daughter, Hinata, and for bringing Root back together after Sarutobi told him to disband." With a nod, Tsunade instructed her Anbu to take him away. They told him to move after they went down. "Now that that's over, I will be leaving the village when Hinata and my daughter are arrested," Naruto said to the crowd as they were leaving. "One more thing, can all the Branch family come down here?" To everyone's surprise, the Branch family began to descend. Naruto created a clone for each of them, totaling about 200, once they were all down there. "Okay, everyone get a clone. If you have a baby, I promise nothing will happen to them." Everyone gave their baby a clone since they knew Naruto could harm them in any case. After obtaining a clone, each person took out a brush and used chakra to force ink into the seal on each person's caged bird seal. They began drawing a seal. All of Naruto's fingers lifted, touched everyone's forehead, and said, "Release," after everyone had the same design on their seal. When everyone saw that the seals on the Hyuga's heads had disappeared, there was a bright flash, and the branch family thanked Naruto. Before he left, he simply grinned and said, "No problem." After a few minutes, Naruto found Hinata awake in her room. He approached her and gave her a hug. His question was, "Are you okay?" With a smile, she replied, "Yes, I'm fine." He said, "Well, I have a story to tell you," with a smile. After saving her from Kabuto, he filled her in on all the events that had transpired. When it was all over, she was joyfully crying and giving him a hug. "Thank you for taking that seal out of the Hyuga clan. It was nothing, Hina-chan. I sent some foxes to go get your things from your room, so you should rest. We'll be leaving tomorrow." He approached her, gave her a kiss, and then said, "I love you, I'll be back in a little while." He then departed, and Hinata lay down to resume her slumber. After about 15 minutes, in Tsunade's office, he threw a kunai across the room and said, "Jiraiya, I know you're there, come out." "So Tsunade, anything you want to know before I leave also?" "You have gotten better, very few people can detect me," Jiraiya said with a laugh. "You didn't think I was sitting on my ass for nearly a year and a half, did you?" "No, but I didn't think you'd improve this much in such little time." "Amazing what a little training can do. Anyway, anything you two want to ask me might be the last time you have a chance for a while." Tsunade remarked, "Yes, I know I do, but do you want anything to drink?" "No, sorry, I don't drink, kind of pointless if you can't get drunk." Jiraiya smiled and replied, "Before we ask anything, why don't you tell us what have you been up to since you left over a year ago?" "Okay, but I can't tell you everything, man's gotta have his secrets." He sighed as they both nodded. "Okay, when I first left I went to Wave to stay with Tazuna for a little while. After staying there a couple of months, Danzo sent around 500 root to capture me. Before they got there I had set up some traps and bombs to take them out with. Right before I went to fight I told Tazuna I was sorry, even though he didn't know why." "Why?" Tsunade asked, raising an eyebrow. "I was about to blow up the bridge to take out a fourth of the root." When Tsunade burst out laughing, Jiraiya grinned and remarked, "I bet he wasn't happy." He muttered, "Best choice of my life." Both Sannin grinned, able to guess what had happened. Oh, he was angry, but anyway, after that brief massacre another month went by. I had rumors of a demon in a small village near Wave, so I decided to check it. When I arrived, come to find out the demon was just a little fox girl. After I had taken her back I got some gear and clothes for her to train. When Tsunade asked, "How old is she?" "She turned 9 last month." "I know you're gonna ask why I let a 9-year-old take the exams, but there's no safer place than with me." Both of them replied, "I want you to look at her after we're done to see if there's anything else wrong besides just not eating enough when she was younger. Can you do that when we're done talking?" With a nod, Tsunade said, "Yeah, I'll check her for anything." They both tensed up when he said, "Thanks." About 2 months later we were walking through the town when Itachi and Kisame appeared. I told Hizuka to run, then I went quickly into three-tail and used a variation of the Rasengan I developed to blow up Kisame and scare Itachi into thinking I could kill him easy, even though I couldn't do that again. After he left nothing happened for around 3 months where I underwent my transformation. Shortly after that we left for me to continue training and to learn politics. I can honestly say it was one of the most boring things ever, but I knew I needed to know it, so I did. After that I came here and you know the rest. "So how strong are you now, brat?" asked Jiraiya. "With 3 tails I could beat you too. If you went into Sage mode then I'd need 5 tails." Tsunade inquired curiously, "How strong when you use all 9 tails?" He grinned and said, "Make a guess." Jiraiya questioned, "As strong as 4 cages?" The two Sannin wondered what was so funny when Naruto burst out laughing. When he eventually stopped, he was beaming wildly. "I can take all of the other Jinchuriki in their village." Tsunade spat out the sake she had been drinking, and Jiraiya was stunned, his mouth hanging open. "You're telling me you could take the other 8 Jinchuriki and Kumo, Iwa, Suna, Kiri, Taki, and Konoha?" Jiraiya asked after 5 minutes. "Just my killing intent would kill anyone lower than mid-Jonin level," Naruto stated, nodding. "Then why didn't that happen when the Kyuubi attacked?" Tsunade asked in confusion. "First of all, the Kyuubi didn't attack, he was being controlled by a masked man with the Sharingan. Secondly, my mother and Kyuubi were good friends even though she was his container and he didn't think Konoha deserved it, so he did all he could to repress his ki." Both Sannin gave a sympathetic nod. "Tsunade, tomorrow I want you to call all of the village to in front of the Hokage Tower." He said, I want to announce something to the village before I leave, in response to her raising an eyebrow. And what would that be? I'm telling them who my parents were. Despite gasping, they both nodded in comprehension. Now that that's over, do you guys have any more questions? If you had to rate yourself in each aspect of a ninja, what would you give yourself? Asked Jiraiya. I know over 60 jutsus, 25 demonic jutsu, 5 regular fighting styles, 2 demon styles, and I've mastered wind, fire, and water elements. I can do 100 seals in 15 seconds, and at full speed, I can get from here to Suna in a couple of hours. 10 in taijutsu, 10 in ninjutsu, and 8-5 in genjutsu, but those are mostly kitsune illusions. After hearing all of that, they were shocked, but Jiraiya had one more query. Fuinjutsu? With a burst of laughter, Naruto remarked, I'm a lot better than my father? They were shocked that the seal wasn't showing up, and just as Jiraiya was about to inquire about how much better Naruto was, he lifted his shirt and channeled chakra. About 3 months ago I examined my seal for about an hour before undoing it at 15 minutes, which released the Kyuubi who is with kitsunes, but we still have a mental connection. I see, Jiraiya asked, how would you describe the Fox realm? Naruto casually remarked, probably how you'd imagine hell, just not as hot. If there's no more question, I'll be going to bring Hizuka back here. Hizuka, how strong is she? Tsunade inquired, high genin to low chunin, a little faster than Neji but not quite as fast as Lee. She's better than Sasuke at ninjutsu, almost as strong as Sakura, and fairly good at genjutsu. Oh yay, and she almost as good as Tenten with her daggers, and I could take on the 7 swordsmen. Do you have any more queries? They both nodded and said, good, I'll see you later. In front of Hokage Tower the following day, Tsunade was standing in front of all the people in Konoha, and when she approached to say something, they all fell silent. Using a jutsu to project her voice, she said, today Uzumaki Naruto would like to tell everyone something before he leaves the village today. Why don't we just kill that demon? Said a stranger. Because I could burn this village to the ground if I wanted, said Naruto, who had just approached, laughing. With his characteristic sneer, Sasuke retorted, yeah right Dobi, you couldn't defeat both of the Sannin here. According to Jiraiya, Naruto here is dar stronger than me and Tsunade and would be a bad person to make mad. Jiraiya approached at this point. Hearing it from Naruto was one thing, but hearing it from a Sannin left most of them perplexed. Thank Jiraiya. Now back to what I was about to say, I'm going to tell you who my parents are. Despite their confusion, everyone chose to remain silent. Actually, I think I'll just show you. Everyone was perplexed when he produced a strange kunai because it either looked familiar or they had never seen one like it. Everyone became even more perplexed when he turned and threw the Hokage monument to the fourth, and then he vanished in a crimson flame. The majority of those over 30 gasped, and Kakashi questioned, Sensei? Naruto was standing there when everyone turned to face the monument, and he exclaimed, Kai. The fourth was colored to make his resemblance to Naruto more noticeable after a genjutsu was released from the monument. Naruto's father is the fourth Hokage? Was the question on everyone's mind in Konoha 11? Jiraiya and Tsunade were giggling uncontrollably during this, and Jiraiya remarked, only Naruto would do something like that to tell everyone. Seeing his opportunity to harm Naruto, Kakashi used a lightning blade to charge at Hizuka, who was standing behind Naruto. Abruptly, Naruto reappeared and stopped Kakashi by grabbing his hand. Naruto went through some quick one-handed seals called Soul Burn, and said, don't you fucking dare Hitaki. Kakashi began yelling abruptly, and Naruto grinned. No, I will take away your Sharingan. Before disentangling Kakashi's eye with fire, Naruto reached out and tore it out. After Tsunade summoned some medical personnel to remove Kakashi, Naruto turned to face Tsunade. He will be back to normal in 36 hours, but he will die in 3 years' time. He returned to the monument and yelled, summoning jutsu, after going through a few hand seals. Gamabunta was present once the smoke had cleared. Is that you, Naruto? Naruto nodded and said, I should slap you for taking on a new contract. How about that? A giant plume of smoke appeared as Naruto released the seals that were holding back his power, and when it was gone, a giant fox that resembled the Kyuubi but had blonde fur with crimson streaks was visible. Don't you feel bad, Bunta? Bunta accepted his raised paw and remarked, no hard feelings, I understand why now. Good, and can you tell the elders I'll be there in a few months? Yay, I will. See you later, Naruto. Naruto was standing by himself in another plume of smoke. Now I want Team 8, 9, 10 except for Kiba, Tuchi and Ayame, Iruka, and Tsunade and Jiraiya to come here. Everyone arrived after about 5 minutes, and he approached Team 8 first. He produced 2 of his kunai and gave them to Shino and Kurenai. Use these if you're ever in trouble, just channel a little bit of chakra into them. Shino, please look after yourself. With a nod, Shino declared, I will Naruto. Kurenai, keep the baby safe. Shino, who is normally stoic, said, Kurenai-sensei is pregnant. Yes, and I would guess it's awesome as. With a nod, Kurenai said, yes, it is, and I will. He approached Team 9 and gave a kunai to each member, explaining how to use it. Guy and Lee, you should calm down a bit, but I like that you two both have confidence, keep up the good work. Both of them grinned and exclaimed, Yash, Tenten, you have turned into a great kunoichi, and women keep it up. He turned to Neji, and she nodded and smiled, I see you've loosened up a bit, that's good. Make sure to keep them safe. I will, don't worry. He then approached Team 10 and gave them each a kunai, explaining how to use it once more. Asuma, you better not die, I know what it's like for a kid to not have a father. When Asuma went pale, Ino questioned, wait, does Asuma have a child? Yes, he does, and it's with Kurenai. I'll make sure to stay alive. Good. You've become quite the kunoichi, Ino, and you have quite the figure. He grinned as he turned to face Ino. Make sure Shika works okay. Then she nodded, flushed, I'll make sure he does. Shika, do some training every once in a while and keep everyone safe. Yay, I will, don't worry, even though it's a drag. Turning to Choji, Naruto said, I see you've grown and become stronger since last time, that's good, he laughed. With a whisper, he said, don't worry, you'll get her soon. Choji looked at Ino, laughed, and nodded. He then approached Tuchi and Ayame, who embraced him and exclaimed, Naruto. Hey Ayame Nichan. Tuchi can show you how to channel chakra since he was Jonin, he said, passing them the kunais. Tuchi chuckled and remarked, how did you find out? You have a lot more chakra than the average civilian, so I put it together. Be ready to leave in about a year because I want to take you away from here, Naruto said, leaning in once more. Tuchi nodded, grinning. He approached Iruka, gave him a kunai, and gave him instructions on how to use it. Please make sure Anko is safe, choking, Iruka said, how did you find out about that? I can smell her on you, laughing, Iruka said, I see and I will. You two probably won't need it, but it's better safe than sorry, he said after approaching them and handing them a kunai. After nodding, they both said, we'll miss you. I'll miss you too. Then he disappeared and materialized before Hizuka and Hinata. Everyone go to the gate for a demonstration. Naruto placed his hand on Hizuka's and Hinata's shoulders as he passed through the gate in a kunai. After 10 minutes, everyone was present when they appeared in front of the gate. Kagetsu and Izumo closed the gate. Izumo and Kagetsu chose not to question Naruto despite not knowing why. Naruto turned to face Sakura and Tsunade after the gate was closed. I'm guessing you two are the strongest in the village in terms of pure physical strength. He smiled and said, good, let's see what you can do to the gate by hitting with no chakra. Both of them nodded. Despite their confusion, they simply shrugged and approached the gate, where Sakura put on her gloves and Tsunade removed her coat. Sakura left a crater that was 20 feet in diameter and 3 feet deep, while Tsunade left one that was 30 feet in diameter and 5 feet deep. They both nodded and hit it simultaneously. Nodding, Naruto remarked, that was pretty good, but let me try. He approached the gate and dropped his coat, causing almost all of the women to either bleed from the nose or blush deeply. His knees were closed and bent, then abruptly opened, and he cocked his fist back, slamming it into the gate. To everyone's surprise, nothing occurred, and Naruto turned around just as someone was about to inquire as to what had transpired. 3, 2, 1. The gate collapsed to rubble as soon as he said it, and the spider webbed from the spot where his fist had struck it. Everyone was in awe of what he had accomplished without any chakra. He approached Hinata and Hizuka with a sly smile. That was awesome, Daddy, exclaimed Hizuka. With a smile, Naruto placed her on his shoulders, took Hinata's hand, and waved to those he loved. Are you ready to go? He asked, turning to Hinata. He grinned and pulled out a kunai after she nodded. His words were, see you guys later, not for the last time. He threw the kunai as far as he could before they all disappeared. Shortly after leaving the village with Naruto and company. Since he was unable to travel at nearly full speed, Naruto, Hinata, and Hizuka, who was riding on his shoulders, were roughly 2 days away from the location he had in mind. What are we going to do now, Naru-kun? Hinata asked, turning to face Naruto. We'll stop here, I have something in mind, he said with a smile. After 10 minutes, they had a tent and a campfire, and Naruto instructed them to follow him to a nearby clearing. Naruto turned to them when they arrived. I want you to spar and go all out. I'm pretty sure Hinata will win, but I know Hazu here will give you a run for your money. After nodding, they assumed their respective positions, Gentle Fist for Hinata and Demon Fox for Hizuka. Are you ready? Hajime. They both nodded. Hinata tried to kick Juken Hizuka in the neck, but she knocked it away and tried to kick Hinata in the stomach. Hinata caught it and threw Hizuka across the clearing. Landing her on her feet, Hinata ran at Hizuka and uttered, 8 trigrams 64 palms, but before she could do so, Hizuka yelled, Fox Pulse, and released some chakra, sending Hinata flying. Hizuka believed Hinata had struck a tree, but in reality, she had replaced it with a log and was 10 feet behind her before Hizuka realized she was there. When she turned around, Hinata yelled, Rotation, and Hizuka simultaneously yelled, Kitfire. Naruto hurried between them, launching both attacks because he could see what was going to happen. When the smoke cleared, Naruto's clothes were ripped to pieces, and he was burned and had cuts all over his torso. Both Hinata and Hizuka gasped. Naruto was laughing aloud despite his pain. Naruto, Dad, each of Hinata and Hizuka shouted. Still giggling, Naruto remarked, that was a nasty attack, good thing I got there in time. Hinata started to say, you should sit down, but stopped when she realized he was already recovering. Calm down, Hina-chan, I regenerate really fast. That will shorten your life. Cells can only divide so many times. Even if that was true, I'm immortal and I'm not dividing cells, I'm creating new ones. Oh okay, that makes sense. She realized what he had said at once. What, you're immortal? Yay, one of the perks of becoming the new Kyuubi. So, is the old Kyuubi no longer alive? No, he isn't released him, he's with the Kitsunes right now. He really is a good guy. When Hinata smelled something cooking the following morning, she got out of the tent. She went over and sat next to Naruto when she noticed him cooking something on the fire while she was out. What will we do at this point? She inquired. We need to get rid of a snake, he said, turning to face her. Perplexed, Hinata inquired, what do you mean? We're going to the land of sound to do Konoha 2 favors. I still don't understand. We're going for multiple reasons. One is to kill Orochimaru and capture Sasuke. The second is to get the bounty on Orochimaru. The last reason is because that's where our new village will be. You're going to start a village, Hinata exclaimed. What will you call it? With a toothy smile, Naruto remarked, I have some ideas. How are you going to recruit people for the community? Offer anyone who wants to come a free pass. What if there are spies or others who wish to hurt us? I can detect any kind of evil because of the fox's chakra. All right, so one more thing. How are you going to construct it? The best architect in the world owes me a favor and an army of foxes. You've really thought about this, Naruto simply gave a head nod. 2 days later, Orochimaru is found outside the base. Orochimaru was in a base, but Naruto and his companions were outside. You two want to see an S-rank jutsu? Naruto asked, turning to face them. Naruto laughed as they both nodded excitedly. Okay, stand behind me then. Both of them leapt back a few feet after calling forth a sealless clone. Naruto began to form a Rasengan, and the clone struck it with unnatural speed. After about 30 seconds, it began to resemble a gigantic shuriken. With a shout of, Fuden Rasen Shuriken, Naruto leapt into the air and threw the Rasengan. The base expanded when the shuriken struck the top, destroying the top 3 levels and ripping off the ceiling of the final one. Orochimaru, Sasuke, and Kabuto were standing on the opposite side of the crater when the smoke cleared. How are you, Kabu-kun, Orochi Teme, and Sasuke? Hinata and Hizuka laughed as Naruto asked in a mocking manner. Orochimaru was laughing at this, while Sasuke and Kabuto were furious. It seems Naruto has gotten a lot stronger, replied Orochimaru. Why don't you two try taking him on? Following a nod, they both said, gladly Orochimaru-sama. Both of them ran toward Naruto, who was just standing there. Kabuto arrived first because he was faster, and just as he was about to strike Naruto, he swung his fist up and yelled, Fox Fist. Kabuto's head exploded after Naruto punched him in the face, causing him to fall onto paper. I see, so you used the reanimation technique to bring him back, Naruto replied. Orochimaru stated, not for very long obviously. Sasuke stood off to the side, perplexed by Naruto's strength. What's the matter? He turned to see Naruto standing behind him, and before he could react, Naruto knocked him unconscious. Thank you Naruto, he would have gotten in the way. I was thinking the same thing. Orochimaru turned to see something unclear. Only Naruto knew that Chitsuki was standing there. I've come to enact revenge Orochimaru for my kits and mate. Oh, it's the mighty Kyuubi, I see. Naruto recalled what Kyuubi had said to him prior to their arrival here. Flashback: when Naruto opened his eyes after realizing he was in his head, he saw the Kyuubi. What do you need to discuss with Chitsuki? Questioned Naruto. I wanted to tell you why I want to kill Orochimaru. Okay then. The reason that Madara was able to take control over me because a few hours beforehand I had come home to my den to find my kits and maid both all dead. I went ballistic, and when I was about to go find the person who did it, Madara showed up and took control of me. I see. I'm sorry to hear that, and I will summon you when we get there. Thank you. End of flashback. Before stopping on a demon hand sign, Naruto and Chitsuki began going through hundreds of them. They both slammed their hands down and yelled, "Binding of the four elements," as smoke burst forth like in a summoning. Orochimaru was surrounded by 4 people when the smoke cleared. The word people wouldn't be appropriate because they were composed of fire, wind, earth, and water. Would you like us to kill this man, Naruto-sama? They all said at once. Yes, but don't harm the head. I need it. Elemental destruction, they all said once more. He was almost totally destroyed by their elemental attacks, but the head was unharmed. Thanks for your help, you can go. Naruto turned to face Chitsuki, who gave him a hug and a smile. Thank you for helping me avenge my family, Naruto. I was happy to help. I will see you later. Chitsuki vanished, and Naruto simply nodded. Hinata approached and said, "Now what are we going to do?" As Hizuka ran up and Naruto picked her up. Grinning, Naruto remarked, "Build a village, obviously." After 2 weeks, Tazuna had been asked to help Naruto construct the village, and although it was not yet complete, Naruto felt he was doing a fantastic job. He, Hinata, and Hizuka were standing on the edge. "Daddy, do you have to go?" Hizuka inquired. "Yes, sweetie, I have to go find people like me so they won't be treated badly anymore." When Hizuka approached him and gave him a hug, he gave her one in return. "Come back soon, Daddy. I'll be back as soon as possible." Hinata inquires, "How long will it take?" as Hizuka nods. "Hopefully no more than 3 months." She approached him, gave him a hug, and said, "Come back soon. Stay safe and keep Hizuka safe." "I will. Also, people will probably be coming while I'm gone." "How can we tell if they are trustworthy?" "They will have a kitsune with them." Naruto turned to go after Hinata nodded. He was on his way to find his kind. After a week away from Suna, when Gaara opened his eyes while meditating in his room, he was surprised to see someone standing in his doorway. "Who are you?" Gaara inquired of the stranger. "I'm hurt you don't remember me, Gaara." Gaara's eyes grew wide. "Is that you, Naruto? Would it be someone else?" Naruto remarked as he entered the light. "I'm happy to see you again, old friend, but tell me why you're here. I see you haven't got anywhere with this village. It's true, no matter how hard I try, no one will open up to me. How would you feel about being valued in a village?" "Where would that be? But that sounds good. My village." "You established a community?" "Yes. Could I bring a few people, and how would we get there?" "I'll get you out of the village, then give you a kitsune to guide you, and I don't have a problem with it." "Okay, give me an hour to get my brother and sister and I'll be back." Gaara shushined out the window as Naruto nodded. After an hour, in Gaara's room, Kankuro, Temari, and Gaara entered Gaara's room. "Where is he?" "Out of nowhere," Naruto said. "Are you ready to go?" Each of them gave a nod. "Okay, all of you put a hand on my shoulders." All of them obeyed and approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. They suddenly vanished in red flames and emerged where the kunai was after he pulled out a kunai and threw it a few hundred meters outside the village. They all looked at what he had just done and let him go. "How would you like to sleep again?" Naruto asked, turning to face Gaara. "How could you accomplish that? That would be incredible. I just need to talk to that bitch Shukaku. How are you going to do that?" "You'll see." Biju call was uttered by Naruto after he had finished going through hand seals and slammed his hand into Gaara's stomach. A woman abruptly showed up and exclaimed, "What the fuck is going on?" She wore a sand-colored kimono, was 5 feet 8 with long brown hair, and her eyes widened at the sight of Naruto, causing her to fall to her knees. "What do you want, Kyuubi-sama?" "I'm so sorry," she got up and said. "Now tell me why you aren't letting Gaara here sleep at night," while everyone else was staring with wide eyes, including Gaara. Naruto simply said, "Get off your knees, Shukaku. I just wanted to get out. Why don't you get to know Gaara some? Maybe then you won't mind being in him." Okay Naruto-sama, I will try. Bye, goodbye Shukaku-chan. She blushed, heard him, and disappeared. Naruto turned to face the people staring at him as if he were crazy. Did I forget to mention I'm the new Kyuubi? Everyone nodded. Well sorry, so yeah, I'm the new Kyuubi. After they all stopped perspiring, he went on, so anyways, I will summon a kitsune to guide you to the village. By now your ring should be finished. When Naruto called forth she, Gaara questioned, what do you mean by ring? Pulling out a special kunai, Naruto simply smiled and said, you'll know when you get there. He added, if you get in trouble, throw this down, and I'll be there. Following she, Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro departed after Gaara nodded and accepted the kunai. The following day away from Konoha, after returning to the village from a mission, Team 10 and Asuma were attacked by the Akatsuki zombie brothers Kakuzu and Hidan approximately a mile from Konoha. After about half an hour of combat, Asuma threw Naruto's kunai immediately after Hidan had cut him. Hidan was about to lick the blood when Naruto jumped to Asuma and Team 10 and kicked him away as he appeared in crimson and black flames. So you're up against Kakuzu of the Five Hearts and Hidan, a Jashin follower. How did you defeat the two humans who were closest to immortals? With a sly smile, Asuma simply stated, I have no idea. I need you all to hold Hidan off for like 5 minutes so I can take Kakuzu down and don't get cut. They all nodded and leapt away. Pursuing Hidan, Naruto approached Hidan, activated a seal on his arm, causing a black sheath with white flames to appear, hooked it to his pants, and then withdrew the sword, which had a black handle and a blade with crimson flames lighting the petals. Kakuzu said, that's a nice blade, where'd you get it? I got it as a gift from Kami-chan. Kakuzu was taken aback and exclaimed, Kami. Yes, its name was White Lotus, but as I'm a demon it changed and it's now the Crimson Lotus. Unable to speak, Naruto went on, I'll show the strength of this blade. Just as he was ready to advance, he said, don't blink. After taking one step, Naruto emerged behind Kakuzu and uttered the words, I only got 3. Kakuzu was about to inquire when the wind, fire, and lightning masks were shattered by Naruto's blade clicking into the sheath. How do you like it? I call it Sonido, the demon form of Shunpo. Now die. Once more, Naruto disappeared, and when he reappeared, he slashed his sword through a hole in Kakuzu's chest, shattering his final mask. Asuma, Team 10, and Hidan stopped applauding during this entire period, which lasted less than 30 seconds. After Hidan caught a kunai that Naruto had thrown at him, Naruto emerged with his scythe and thrust it through Hidan and into a tree. Before spitting blue fire at Hidan, he went through a number of hand signals. He will burn for 3 days before his soul burns away. All of them nodded, too stunned to speak. Now I must be going, I've heard some interesting news. Naruto vanished in black flames after that hideout of Akatsuki, unknown location. Pain-sama, the location of the 9 tails is very strange. He was last spotted outside of the sand and now he was last seen killing Kakuzu and Hidan outside of the leaf, said Zetsu. Very interesting, try to keep an eye on him, but don't worry if you can't, Pain replied. Of course. Zetsu disappeared, sinking into the earth. After 2 days inside Kumo, the Raikage had sent Yugito Ne on another suicide mission, and she was returning home. A tall, pretty blonde girl who would likely have a lot of men chasing her if she weren't the Nibi's Jinchuriki. A man was sitting on her couch when she opened the door to her run-down apartment, but it appeared as though the shadows themselves were bending around him to hide his appearance. Who are you? She asked, drawing a kunai. I'm sure the Nibi is about to tell you. As she opened her mouth to speak, Nibi interrupted, saying, Kitten, please don't irritate him, this person is not what you believe, you have no power over him. Yugito was perspiring now. The Nibi was afraid of this man, which indicated that he was strong. Who is this Nibi? In her mind, she said. This is the great Kyuubi. Yugito exclaimed, you're the Kyuubi? Abruptly, he lifted her hand and kissed it, saying, yes, I am the Kyuubi or Naruto Uzumaki, whichever works. What brings you here? Would you be interested in visiting a village where you are respected and loved due to your Jinchuriki heritage? I would like to offer you a deal. Yugito became giddy, saying, what, really? In agreement, Naruto nodded his head. Why would you act in this way? Because I know what it is like to be treated worse than trash. What time are we leaving? Before we depart, I must first get the Hachibi, do you want to accompany me? After she gave a nod, they both left the village. Outside Kurabi's house, training ground in the village. Yugito was breathing heavily when they stopped on top of one of the flat-topped giant rocks with a house in the background. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, Naruto yelled, come on out Kurabi. A tall, dark-skinned man suddenly materialized, which wasn't unusual given that they were in Kumo, but he was wearing 8 swords on his back, a bandana, and sunglasses, which was a little strange. "You're doing well. I was informed by the Hachibi that you are 9 tails. That's good because it saves time when I have to explain myself. How would you like to live in a place where people will adore and love you, Kurabi? Even if I accepted, how would you get me out of the village without my brother ascending ninjas after us? That is a tempting offer. I'm sure we could make some sort of deal. If you can get me out, I'll go. I can't stand these people. They don't appreciate me even though I've done so much for them. Trust me, I can understand." The Raikage's office an hour later. Like most Kages, the Raikage was at his desk doing paperwork. Looks boring. The Raikage thought he was going crazy as he looked up and around for the source of the noise, but he saw no one. "Who are you trying to find?" He was startled to see a blue-eyed, blonde man who looked like the Yellow Flash. "Who are you? What are you looking for?" "I'll respond to the initial question. Naruto Uzumaki is who I am. Additionally, I would like your consent to take your Jinchuriki to a loving environment." "Why would I act in that way?" "Because they want to come with me." "Prove it, Kurabi." "Yugito." The Raikage gasped as both of them emerged behind Naruto. "Is this sufficient evidence? You can't have them all by yourself? Well then, make a deal. I'm listening. If I can defeat anybody of your choosing, then I'm allowed to take them. If I lose, then I'll never bother you again." "Interesting. We will be meeting with your opponent tomorrow at noon at Training Ground 13. They all vanished after Naruto nodded. Training Ground 13 the following day. By 11:45, Naruto, Yugito, and Kurabi had arrived, and the Raikage soon followed, accompanied by a large number of villagers, as the fight had become widely known. "So, who am I going to fight?" did Naruto ask. The Raikage strode forward, saying, "Me." With a smile, Naruto said, "Excellent." Darui moved between them when they were about 30 yards apart. Or both participants read. They both nodded, "Okay Hajime." With his sword at his throat, Naruto vanished behind the Raikage after throwing his cloak at Yugito and stating, "Hold on to this, Yugito." Naruto remarked, "You realize who I am now," as the Raikage gasped. Everyone was taken aback because, despite his seemingly powerful appearance, the man defeated the Raikage in an instant. After putting the sword away, Naruto approached Yugito, who was in disbelief over what she had just witnessed. "Let's go." After giving each other a nod, they all departed. In the 7th district, Hinata and Hizuka were strolling around. Did I just hint at the appearance of the village? According to Hizuka, "I miss Daddy," Hinata remarked. "I know I do too, but he should be home soon." Given that he had been absent for about 3 months, Hizuka appeared to be pleased by this. They hurried to the front gate after hearing an explosion, and after about 5 minutes, they saw a number of people there, including Deidara the Mad Bomber, Sasori of the Red Sands, Uchiha Itachi, Kisame Hoshigaki, and Onoki of both scales, in addition to 1,000 or so rockmen. A massive wall of crimson flames appeared on top of the outermost wall, and Naruto was standing there with an evil smile on his face when they vanished. "Welcome ladies and gentlemen to, in New Village. Greetings from the 9 circles of hell. Every circle is home to a Jinchuriki and each ring has a different purpose," nearly everyone exclaimed, either in surprise or fear. This clarified why all 9 bijus with their corresponding Jinchuriki were depicted in a giant design on the gate. Now that almost everyone was staring with wide eyes, Naruto slammed his hands down and yelled, "Come on in." At this point, roughly 300 of the less skilled rock ninja dashed through the newly opened gate. For some reason, no one could see them, but they could all hear cries of fear and death coming from within. When they heard someone laughing, everyone turned to look at Naruto, who was laughing uncontrollably. This made some of the weaker rock ninja in the big army feel uneasy. After a few minutes, Naruto stopped laughing, but his grin remained incredibly evil. "Now before I give our fine guest here the full tour, I must do something," he said abruptly as he appeared next to Hinata. He kissed her for about a minute, leaving her breathless and flushed. He then picked up Hizuka and twirled her around before returning to his original location and saying, "Man, I've missed them so much. Anyways, let me show you my wonderful village." Now, all of the rock ninja entered slowly and saw a vast desert. They continued for a while before a huge wave of sand suddenly struck them, killing only a few because the majority of them jumped out of the way. From above them, Naruto shouted, "Okay, you've now met First Circle Guardian, Gaara of the Bloody Sands. Go on to the next circle, let them pass Gaara." Something began to rise out of the sand, and when it did, 3 people were standing there, one slightly ahead of the other 2. The person in front had red hair with a few black streaks, and his eyes were normal except for the fact that they were yellow. He was about 5 feet 9, wearing sandals and anbu pants, but he was wearing a dark brown shirt with a cloak over it that said, First Circle Captain, and Gaara of the Bloody Sands. He also had a ring that almost no one could see, and almost no one could see it. The second figure, standing behind and to his left, was around 5 feet 8 inches with sandy blonde hair with bleach blonde highlights. She was dressed essentially in the same clothes as Gaara, with the exception of a loose-fitting black shirt, a cloak that read, First Circle Lieutenant, and Tamari the Sickle Weasel, and a ring, though hers bore the kanji for Weasel. Gaara's third figure, standing around 5 feet 11 inches, wore the same sandals and pants as the other two, but he had a shirt with a hood over his head to hide his hair. His cloak read, First Circle Lieutenant, and Konkuro of the Strings, and the kanji for puppets was engraved on his ring. Tamari the Sickle Weasel and Konkuro of the Makeup are his two lieutenants. Tamari was giggling at this, Konkuro was furious, and even Gaara, who was attempting to appear serious, smiled a little. Anyways, on to the second ring. The next circle was a huge cemetery with tombstones scattered throughout, and it didn't help that the gate featured a huge image of the Ichibi looking very crazy. The ninja saw no reason to attack if they were going to let them move on, so they kept walking with the 5 big hitters at the back. Abruptly, 2 figures emerged from the fog. The tall woman in front was unmistakably a woman, with long blonde hair that had blue tips at the back. She was around 5 feet 7 inches and, upon closer inspection, looked to be around 20 years old. She was dressed in a typical Anbu outfit, but she also wore the cloak like everyone else, with the words, Yugito of the Demon Flame, and Second Ring Captain, written on the back. Her ring bore the kanji for 2, which wasn't unexpected. The second one, who was about 5 feet 10 inches and unmistakably male, had a calm face, orange hair with black stripes, and average Anbu pants and a gray shirt. He looked to be about 17 years old, and like everyone else, he wore a cloak with the words, Jugo of the Madhouse, and Second Ring Lieutenant, written on the back. His ring bore the Joker kanji, which made some people shudder. Here is the Second Ring Captain Yugito Ni, also known as the Yugito of the Demon Flame, for her terrifying use of Kaiden jutsus, and her Lieutenant Jugo, also known as Jugo of the Madhouse, for special reasons, said Naruto with a grin. Now that they've been introduced, let's move on, unless of course you want a demonstration of how he got that name. When they entered, they saw a huge lake with a massive bridge that was covered in mist, and since no one really wanted to, they passed through the gate that had a skull and crossbones encircled by flames. 2 figures appeared out of the mist, one of whom appeared to be no older than 10, but most people knew this was probably not the case. Upon closer inspection, they noticed that he had pink eyes and light green hair, was wearing Anbu pants and sandals, a green muscle shirt, and a cloak with the words, Third Ring Captain, and Yagura the Timeless, written on it. His ring bore the kanji for 3. He was 5 feet 8 inches and had white hair, and he was wearing the same outfit as the little guy except that his shirt was light blue and his cloak had the words, Suigetsu of the 7 Swords, and Third Ring Lieutenant, written on the back. His ring, surprisingly, had the kanji for shark on it. He smiled at them while wearing a shark t-shirt and carrying Zabuza's decapitator blade on his back. On to the next ring, Naruto declared, This is the Second Ring Captain Yagura the Timeless and his Lieutenant Suigetsu of the 7 Swords. Both are very deadly Sweden users. The enormous tidal wave at the next gate was red rather than blue.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.